Some pieces of clothing come with a small patch of fabric with a button on it. While it's quite obvious how to use the button, the fabric's purpose isn't so apparent. It's not there to patch holes. You're supposed to test your cleaning products on it. Then, if something goes wrong, you won't ruin the whole garment. The seemingly random dime-sized hole in the elevator door is actually a keyhole. If the elevator doors get stuck, an operator can open them manually by inserting a special key in this hole. The same tool is used when an elevator needs routine maintenance. Some plastic milk containers have dents in their sides that serve several purposes. For one, if milk spoils, this process can cause swelling and high-pressure buildup inside the container. That's when the dent comes in handy. It pops out and doesn't let the jug blow up. Plus, if you decide to freeze the milk, it'll expand like any other liquid. And then again, the indentation will pop out and prevent the container from bursting inside the freezer. A first-timer might think that Chinese takeaway boxes have a peculiar shape. The more experienced diners know that by unfolding the sides of these containers, you get a paper plate with the food already sitting on top. The lines on plastic solo cups can help you measure out liquids and non-liquids too. From the bottom up, those lines coincide with the measurements of 1, 5, and 12 ounces. The lowermost line is the perfect portion of mouthwash. The middle one is a serving of cereal for breakfast, and the topmost is the amount of water recommended to drink 4 to 5 times a day. Striped toothpaste will always come out in stripes even if you mash the tube with all your strength. No magic involved though. The product is very dense and viscous, so it doesn't mix well. The white, blue, and red parts of the toothpaste are pushed down at an even rate thanks to their similar physical properties. And viscosity helps the stuff be pushed down and out from the edges first, so no matter how hard you try, there will always be those perfect stripes. Not every iPhone owner pays attention to an almost unnoticeable little hole between the camera and the flash. It's the gadget's second microphone. Its role is to block outside noises when you're filming a video. This microphone also makes the sound clearer. Use it when you're on the phone in a noisy place. Dental floss can slip out from your fingers and tangle. To avoid such problems, tear off a piece and floss and tie its two ends together. It will be much easier to use and won't hurt your hands. Most frying pans have holes in their handles. You can use it to hang the thing on a hook on the wall, but that's not its original purpose. When you're cooking something in the pan, the hole in the handle is there to hold your messy spoon. It's especially important for plastic utensils because you can't leave them in the pan for long since they can melt. Some toothpicks have several grooves on the blunt end. When you need to use one, break off the grooved end and put it on the table. It'll serve as a rest to keep your toothpick from touching the surface. You've probably noticed that most soft drink lids have ridges and 3 bumps on them. With their help, the lid can turn into a coaster once you put it on the table and place the cup on top of it. No more spillage. Bath foam isn't only for fun or a nice smell. It also helps regulate the temperature. The bubbles keep the water hot so you can enjoy a bath a bit longer. Anyway, it works for acrylic bathtubs only. Those made of metal lose heat really fast either way. Almost all measuring tapes have a metal tip with a small slot on the end. You can use this slot to hang the tape on a nail or a screw to make measurements without anyone's help. Sometimes this tip has a row of sharp points along the edge on one side. That comes in handy when you want to leave a mark without using a pencil. A pack of cotton pads has those strings on it so we could hang it on some hook or holder. And no, there's no need to untighten and tighten the pack again. Look at the bottom of the pack. It has a perforated line. Tear along that, and now you're good to pull out a cotton pad. A triple handle on a jerry can is there to make it easier for 2 people to carry it and distribute the fuel evenly. Gas cans often have a second hole that actually needs to be uncapped too before you pour the gas. The air passage will prevent it from pouring out. Lemons get juicier if you warm them up a little bit in the microwave. The heat softens the frozen membranes, so the juice can flow out freely. More lemonade for you! When you buy some grated cheese, get ready for a surprise. If the package says it contains cellulose, it means that the cheese does contain wood pulp. Don't worry, it's digestible. It's added to prevent the product from clumping. The expiration date on mineral water isn't about water going bad. Actually, no water can spoil. but the bottle can. Over time, it starts leaking some chemicals that aren't quite safe. The spike in the cap of a tube of ointment or cream is there so you can puncture the tiny foil seal. No need to grab a toothpick or try to use your fingernails to peel it off. Post-it notes are supposed to be peeled off from the side, like you're turning the page in a book. Most of us tear them from the bottom, and that just creates a crease and makes the whole note less sticky. To prevent water from boiling over, just lay a wooden spoon across the rim of the pot. It only works for a little while though. If the spoon's surface gets heated up to the boiling point, the bubbles will just foam up and around it. That's why metal spoons won't do. They heat up too quickly. Some erasers have two colors and textures, not for pen ink versus pencil lead, but for different types of paper. You're supposed to use the blue side to remove pencil marks from heavy grades of paper. Most people use bobby pins upside down. The zigzagged part goes closer to your scalp. The texture keeps the hair and pin in place much better. And give your pins a spritz of hairspray before putting them in. They'll grip better. Ever notice the tiny second hole in the lid of your coffee travel mug or to-go cup? It's there to control how smoothly the liquid flows out from the drink hole. Without it, the hot stuff would just glug out at you like milk from a jug. It also lets the steam escape so the high temperature and built-up pressure don't melt the lid or send it shooting off. Apples you buy at the supermarket were likely picked between August and November. After that, they were covered in wax, hot air dried, and stored in cool places. It takes the fruit 6 to 12 months to make it to fresh produce shelves. Sometimes you need to get away from your computer but don't want to keep logging back in. Put your mouse over the top of an analog watch. The mouse will perceive the ticking second hand's movement, and this will prevent your computer screen from turning black. When using a blender, pour the liquids in it first. Only after adding your milk, coconut water, or yogurt, put the berries, fruit, or spinach inside. Thanks to the holes in the bottoms of earphones, air can circulate up and down through the speakers. It results in increased low frequencies. This makes the bass sound deeper and improves the overall sound quality. You can use metal loops on the sides of a grocery cart to organize the space in your cart better. Hang your jacket on such a loop or put a bag of delicate items there, like eggs or bread. This way your jacket won't get wrinkled and eggs won't get squished. The black lines on a basketball make the game easier to play. They're actually grooves helping you handle the ball. And since the players need to move around the court while dribbling or bouncing the ball, control is crucial. The black lines allow you to grip the ball better. You can also easily steer it in any direction once it's in your hand. If the basketball was smooth, you wouldn't be able to do it. By the way, pebbled dots that cover the outside of the ball serve the same purpose. The drawer at the bottom of your stove is there to keep your dishes warm when you cook large amounts of food. When one dish is in the oven, the already prepared ones are kept warm in the drawer below. Go shopping for some oranges and I'm sure you'll get them in a red mesh bag. You'll rarely see them lying around without one of those. It's pure marketing. And that color isn't a random choice. When packed in a red mesh bag, oranges appear more orange, fresher, and more appealing to you. So you're more likely to buy them, right? Lemons are usually sold in green mesh bags for a similar reason. If you pack them in red, they'll appear more orange. Green goes better with yellow and makes those lemons stand out. You open a bag of chips and find it half empty, or half full if you're an optimist. Frustrating, I know, but I figured it's not because the manufacturer wants to get more cash out of you. The extra air helps to protect your chips from any damage. If the bags were filled to the brim, you'd get chip dust instead of chips after their transportation. A raspberry-flavored ice pop is typically blue, not pink or red, which both would be more obvious color choices. Well, imagine you're making a pack of popsicles. You can pick green for apple flavor, pineapple or lemon is yellow. There's strawberry, so it should be red. Cherry, well, red again. Watermelon? Red. And now raspberry. Yeah, red. But 4 reds are definitely way too many, and people won't tell the difference between them easily. So, at first, both strawberry and cherry flavors were red, but of different shades. The watermelon one was pink. They made the raspberry ones of a deep dark red dye. Then, scientists proved that that dye might be dangerous, so it was banned. Blue was another free color option, but there's no blue fruit or berry except for blueberry. And it's not a very popular flavor, so manufacturers started to paint raspberry blue. Sometimes they call it blue raspberry, but it's just a lab thing that doesn't naturally exist. If you buy a clock or see a picture of it, it'll most likely show 10:10 by default. The only reason behind it is that it just looks nice. You can see both hands, and they don't overlap. Also, it's symmetrical and nice, and it frames the 12. And finally, it makes a smiling shape that gives off a positive vibe. Mattresses usually have those decorative stitching patterns on them. Mattress manufacturers make a limited number of different mattresses, and the only way to make them look different is to come up with a fancy stitching pattern. Two mattresses of different companies might be the exact same quality, but cost differently. Most people will never know it and will decide that different patterns mean something in terms of quality. So, when shopping, don't mind the pattern at all. Cheese has holes. In most types, they're small, but they can also be huge. Cheese is made by adding bacteria to milk, and the holes are the result of it. Those bacteria consume lactic acid and release little gas bubbles. They're trapped in the cheese, and then they pop, forming those little holes. The size of holes depends on the production temperature and its acidity. Swiss cheese has extra large holes. It's made at a temperature of around 120 degrees Fahrenheit and incubated at 70 degrees Fahrenheit for 5 to 7 days. So the cheese is very soft and the bubbles grow especially big. All coins have ridges, but have you ever wondered why? At first, all coins were linked to a silver standard. The amount of silver used in a coin was proportionate to the value of the coin. So, a $1 coin had way more actual silver in it than, say, a quarter. The edges were made reeded for security reasons. Once, it was a coin element that made a coin harder to reciprocate. It also prevented another kind of fraud. People would shave off a bit of metal from the edges of coins. It would be just a little so that no one would notice the difference. But if you did it to many coins, you'd get enough precious metals to sell. Reeded edges made it impossible. If someone tried to shave them off, the ridge would become smooth, and it'd be obvious to anyone that a coin had been tampered with. Nickels and pennies didn't have them because they were made of inexpensive metals, so there was no sense in protecting them. Now, no one makes coins out of silver, but the ridges are still there. When the governments started to produce new coins, they didn't see a point in changing the coin-making equipment, and they just kept the reeded edges. If you ever played billiards, you must know that green table well. The game originated around the 14th century, 5 centuries before basketball. Back then, folks didn't have pool tables, of course. Instead, they were playing it outside on the green lawn. Later, people moved the game indoors so they could play it even when it was raining. And they kept the nostalgic green to give it some lawn vibes. Medical workers usually wear a uniform that is a shade of blue or green. There's a reason for it. Before the 20th century, they were wearing their regular clothes, even when performing surgery. With the development of medicine, people started to pay more attention to matters of sterileness, so they started to wear a uniform, and at first, it was white to signify purity. The problem was that some stains were very hard to wash off from the white uniform. The color white would become greenish. So, it made sense to make the uniform green or blue. Besides, surgeons mostly focus on red colors during work. Blue and green are exactly the opposite side of the spectrum. So, if everything else is greenish-blue, the red becomes even more distinctive. Wash your hands with plain white soap, and you'll see some white foam. Wash them with a blue, red, yellow, green, whatever color, and the foam is still white. The reason for it is scattered light. Any light rays that falls on an object either get absorbed or are reflected back. Things that absorb all colors appear black. Those that reflect all colors are white. A red bar of soap is red because only the red color reflects back, and the other colors are absorbed. But once you produce some foam, it's made of many little bubbles. Each of them scatters light in different directions, so it looks white. Do you see something when you rub your eyes? These colors and shapes are called phosphenes. The reason why you see them is that when you're rubbing, you increase the pressure in the eyeball and activate the neurons of the retina that process visual information. Once they're activated, your brain interprets it as if you see the light and it tries to actually see it. Ever wondered why you have black circles around your eyes when you're tired? The skin under the eyes is very thin, so the blood vessels are very close to the surface, and you can see any difference easily. When you lack sleep, your skin gets paler, and the blood vessels are even more visible. So, you can see those dark circles showing through the skin. Also, with age, your skin naturally gets thinner, so that's why older people tend to have dark circles. But if you're young, try to get more sleep, and they'll be gone. You say Germany, the Spanish say Alemania, and the Germans say Deutschland, and it sounds like 3 different countries, but it's just one. If someone's name is Olivia, she will be more or less of Olivia everywhere, so why do countries have different names in different languages? Countries have existed for a long time. Back when people from different countries couldn't communicate and spoke different languages, they'd refer to some territory the way they referred to it, never agreeing with other countries, and the name stuck. A German tribe called Alemanni once lived in what's now Switzerland. So I guess that's why the Spanish started to call the land Alemania. Then the Germans were united and called themselves Deutschland. In English, the pronoun I is always capitalized. Even the linguists don't know for sure why it's so. At least yet. I comes from the German ich. During the time it evolved from ish to ich and later to I. Some theorize that a little I appeared to be too insignificant in a sentence, standing on its own, so it started to be capitalized to be more distinctive. If you've ever seen a behind-the-scenes video, you might have noticed that they click that clapperboard before each scene. This clap helps a lot at the stage of editing. The film and the audio are recorded separately, and when they're synchronized, the clapperboard makes that brief clap at the very beginning of a shot scene. And it's easier to find where the scene starts to add the audio. Another reason is to give more details on the filmed piece. They add information about the scene and take number, the filming date, the camera angle, and other important stuff to the clapperboard that makes it easier to go through hundreds of video pieces later.
After a bad day at work, you decide to hide yourself from the rest of the world. You turn off your phone and your laptop and lock yourself inside the bathroom. You jump out of your meditation when you hear a beeping sound. It's your toothbrush saying, "Data transfer completed." Your robot vacuum knocks at the door. Looks like it must be after you. Robot vacuums make a map of your home to get around and plan cleaning better. They can share this map with other gadgets via Wi-Fi and store them in the cloud. When advertisers get access to those maps, they can get an idea of your home size, your income level, and lifestyle to send the right ads your way. Vacuums don't have microphones, but their navigation systems can be repurposed to listen to your conversations. They map the room with a laser beam directed at objects. Sound waves affect that light. If you collect that data, you can convert it back into sound waves and identify what someone said. Headphones and microphones are based on the same idea. Headphones turn electrical signals into sound, and microphones turn sound into electrical signals. If you plug your headphones into the microphone jack, they'll work as a microphone. Bad guys learn to do it remotely without your consent. There's malware that retasks your computer output channel into input channel. It can record sounds from across the room even when the headphones are in their jack and the microphone is turned off and disconnected from the computer. Then it compresses the audio and sends it over the internet. There are computer mice that look like regular ones but have microphones and a built-in SIM card in them. The mics are so powerful they can even record whisper and broadcast that audio in real time. To activate it, you have to call the SIM card number and it goes on silently. To deactivate it, you can send an SMS to the same number. Some employers confirmed eavesdropping on their staff using that technology. A smart toothbrush remembers every move you made with it and shares it with you when you're done brushing. It also connects to your iPhone or Android using an app and sends data on your brushing habits to your dentist. They can watch over your brushing process and give you tips on how to take better care of your teeth. Smartwatches, fitness trackers, and other smart wearables monitor your health and can determine if you're walking, running, or driving with their built-in sensors. If third parties get control over that data, they can also monitor your hand movements as you unlock your phone, enter your PIN code at the ATM, or your password at the computer. The gadgets are smart enough to accurately guess all that secret data most of the time. They can also find out the email address you used when you registered with the app to identify who you are. Pacemakers and other health devices send patient data over the internet. In theory, criminals could obtain it during transfer and change it to look like the patient needs hospital treatment. That would make them leave their home, and bad guys could take advantage of the situation. Smart toys that have cameras and microphones in them can record videos and sounds and send them to the toy maker. To keep prices on smart toys lower, they don't add expensive security mechanisms to protect that data. If cybercriminals get a hold of it, they can steal pictures, videos, or audio, and even identify GPS coordinates of the house. LED lights equipped with sensors and connected to video cameras can watch over and listen to conversations over a large distance. This technology was used at one large airport for security and comfort reasons. Cybercriminals went further and learned to use ordinary light bulbs for eavesdropping on conversations. To do it, they need a clean line of sight between a powerful telescope and the bulb of the right thickness. It won't work if you have drapes on your window. When you're talking or listening to music, there are changes in air pressure on the surface of the bulb and it's shaking a bit. A special converter can turn data on the sounds from electrical to digital. Internet-connected thermostats can be operated remotely, and that made them desirable for cybercriminals. They once got access to millions of debit and credit cards data through a large retailer's heating and cooling system. Other bad guys found a way to remotely lock smart thermostats' controls and demanded ransom to unlock them. Smart fridges can tell you when it's time to buy milk as they track your food preferences and have great connectivity. Smart dishwashers, coffee machines, washers, and dryers are also collecting and transmitting your data, even at moments you don't think they're doing it. Criminals can make use of that data to find out a lot about your schedule and guess when you aren't at home. Your voice assistant makes your life easier, but it must listen to you 24/7 to make that possible. They never record anything you say before you activate them with your voice. Everything that follows is stored in the cloud and can be of use for different companies. They can learn what music you like to listen to, what news stories interest you the most, and where you make your reservations. Some companies hire human reviewers to listen to commands to see if voice recognition works well and improve its accuracy. Xbox admitted they also hired people to listen to users' audio to improve voice command features. The problem is that it made some recordings by mistake and strangers were listening to personal chats. Home security cameras can take videos, pictures, and audio recording and upload them to the cloud without you even knowing. Manufacturers say it's done to improve object recognition. You can get access to that camera footage remotely using an app. There are programs that can guess a CCTV password and forward the video stream to a third-party computer. They can also get control over the camera and disable any signs of monitoring, like red light, so it seems inactive. Almost every car has an event data recorder that tracks information on its location, average speed, road condition, and even your preferred route. Your computer on wheels constantly streams that data to its manufacturer. They use it to try to prevent accidents and make other improvements. It's not clear who owns all that car-related information, so in theory, it could end up at a third party. Smart TVs run an operating system just like computers and also have a file system, cameras for video face recognition, and a microphone. They are always connected to the internet, and if cyber criminals get access to a TV, that can change certain settings and record audio even when the TV is off. They could also watch you through the camera and use the smart gadget to move to other devices on the same network, like your laptop. Well, I'm totally creeped out, so what can we do about it? You can disable automatic content recognition to stop your TV from giving you viewing recommendations and limit voice activation function for a safer experience. You'll find that option in General or Advanced settings under Viewing Information or Viewing Data. You can also disconnect it from the cloud altogether. Always change default passwords and usernames on new devices to secure your network. Make up a new password for every gadget every now and then. You can also split your modem and use one Wi-Fi signal for laptops, iPads, and the like, and the other for security cameras. Don't forget to turn off the Wi-Fi router when you leave the house to minimize the risk of a digital intrusion. Whenever possible, enable two-step authentication that demands physical access to the device to log in. Always install software updates as soon as the gadget manufacturer offers you to do it. Updates have patches for detected vulnerability issues. Cover your laptop camera with a dark-colored tape when you aren't using it. Delete your conversations with the voice assistant. You can do it at the manufacturer's website or app. Another option is to activate the Delete by Voice function in Settings. Then you'll be able to tell the assistant to delete what you just said or your last conversations. You can also mute the device when you aren't using it and choose not to send data to manufacturer to help them improve services. If you have a thermostat that connects to your voice assistant, tap the microphone icon on its screen and set voice control to off. You won't be able to activate it remotely, and it won't be able to listen to wake words and send your audio anywhere. Okay, have a nice day.
What's hiding inside Coca-Cola cans and regular household batteries? Why do magnets affect breakfast cereals? Do crosswalk buttons actually work, or are they just useless decorations? What does that USB symbol really mean? I'm not sure I know the answers to these and similar questions, but I'm eager to learn the truth together with you. Let's find it out. Coca-Cola cans have a secret few people know about. Here's a Coke can. Let's submerge it in a highly corrosive alkaline solution. The aluminum dissolves due to a process known as hydrolysis, and we can see a plastic liner inside the can. It's made from a polymer or epoxy resin and serves as some kind of a protective barrier between the aluminum walls of the can and the rather acidic soda. Despite a popular myth, household batteries don't actually contain liquid, and if you accidentally cut them open, no toxic liquid will spill. Most of them are dry cell batteries, which are made of electrochemical cells. Those convert chemical energy into electrical energy. Larger batteries often house numerous small cells within them too. Even Tesla vehicle batteries consist of multiple small cells. When combined, they easily provide the necessary voltage. Most toothbrushes have differently colored bristles, but they aren't just pleasing to the eye. Those bristles, often blue, have a functional purpose. They're called toothbrush indicators, and their colors fade as you use the brush. The American Dental Association recommends changing your toothbrush at least 4 times a year. And by getting paler, these bristles help you figure out when it's time to replace your toothbrush. You'll probably agree that there's no better snack than a pack of chips. Some are flat, others have ridges. Is it just aesthetics? Not really. The main purpose of those lines on some kinds of chips is to help with the distribution of spices and seasonings. In other words, all those substances that make your chips taste like cheese are mostly stored inside the lines. Plus, the lines make chips crunchier. Now this one might be a surprise, but some breakfast cereals are magnetic. That's because they're often fortified with iron in the form of a fine powder. Due to the added iron, cereal flakes get attracted to magnets. All this may sound kinda alarming, but in reality, the iron content in the flakes is minimal and doesn't pose any threat to your health. That clear fluid in gel pens is called the ink follower or stopper fluid. The gel in such pens contains pigment particles dissolved in a polymer solution. The main task of the stopper fluid is to be a barrier to prevent the gel from evaporating or leaking out. Without this transparent fluid, your gel pen wouldn't function. The fluid always stays in one position and doesn't get dissolved with the gel. Neither does it move backwards or flow out of the pen. Many pedestrian crosswalk buttons, namely in New York, are placebo buttons. They do literally nothing when you press them. Originally, they were functional after being introduced in 1964, but today, most of them don't affect traffic lights, which are programmed based on the real needs of the traffic flow. Why do such buttons even exist then? It's a simple psychological trick, providing you with an illusion of control. You might have noticed that movie theater seats are almost always red. This choice isn't random, it has strategic importance, which is rooted in visual science. The thing is, red light has a longer wavelength. It means that it's the first color to disappear in low light. It allows the audience to concentrate better on the screen once the movie begins. Such a design choice enhances the viewing experience by minimizing distractions. Speed bumps are crucial for pedestrian safety, but at the same time, they can seriously increase car emissions due to the non-stop acceleration and deceleration they cause. To address this issue, some cities like London are testing fake speed bumps. Those are optical illusions painted on the road. They look raised from a driver's perspective, but in reality, they're flat. Authorities hope that this approach will slow down drivers without having a negative impact on the environment. Soda bottles are always filled in such a way that there's some space between the liquid and the cap. That's because soda contains carbon dioxide. It's a gas that can expand once the bottle's heated. If there's no gap in the bottle, it can break because of the pressure building inside. Also, when you open your drink, the gases go out in the form of bubbles, making the drink overflow. The gap helps with this problem too. The USB symbol, looking like a trident, has always sparked multiple speculations about its origin. One popular idea is that it represents Neptune's trident and symbolizes power and adaptability. But there's also a little bit less exciting theory. A man who claimed to have designed the symbol in the 1980s stated that it was supposed to represent connectivity. The large circle symbolizes a computer, while the attached shapes, the circle, the triangle, and square, stand for different outputs. The design of a tennis racket has a specific feature known as the throat. It's an open space below the head of the racket. This space isn't just for storing balls, it also improves the racket's aerodynamics by letting air pass through. It seriously reduces drag during swings. Speaking of tennis courts are usually built with a north-south orientation. It helps minimize the impact of the sun's position during the game, ensuring that neither player has the sun directly in their eyes. Look closely at a tram's overhead lines, and you'll see that its contact wires zigzag back and forth instead of going in a straight line. That's because all trams have pantographs attached to their roofs. The upper part of the pantograph is gradually worn down by the overhead wire and eventually needs to be replaced. To wear it down evenly, the wire is not installed strictly along the tram's path, but in zigzag patterns. As the tram moves, the pantograph slides along the wire, and it wears down evenly. Those cone-shaped water cooler cups? Their shape is intentionally designed to prevent users from setting the cups down. This allows employees to minimize the risk of spilling water on their desks around various electronic devices. Plus, less material is used to produce cone-shaped cups, which makes the process less wasteful and more cost-effective. It also kinda supports sustainability by encouraging people to drink their water quickly and dispose of their cups immediately after. Most suitcases have 2 zipper pulls, and it serves several purposes. First of all, if one zipper fails, the other can keep the suitcase closed. Even better, having 2 zippers allows you to have easier access to small sections of your suitcase without having to open it entirely. And finally, when you have 2 zippers, you can connect them with a padlock for increased security. Some plastic milk containers have dents on their sides. These dents serve several purposes. When milk spoils, it usually causes swelling and high-pressure buildup inside the container. That's when the dent pops out and doesn't let the jug blow up. Plus, if you decide to freeze the milk, it will expand like any other fluid. And then again, the indentation will pop out and prevent the container from breaking inside your freezer. If you ever had a problem figuring out why fake pockets exist, you need to hear this. The main reason is that if a clothing item has a specific cut or shape, pockets may spoil it. They can alter the item's shape either in the warehouse or already on the retail rack. The solution? Getting rid of the pockets in key areas. Plus, fake pockets are obviously cheaper, and they don't get stretched out. The thermos wasn't actually invented to keep your coffee warm. It was made by a Scottish scientist who wanted a safe place to keep his chemicals at a stable temperature. So, he took 2 bottles, put the smaller one inside the bigger bottle, and vacuumed out the air between them.
Now, doctors recommend risking your life at least twice a day. I mean, brushing your teeth at least twice a day. But you see, the seemingly harmless toothpaste that peacefully chills on every American counter poses a life-threatening danger because of one not-so-harmless ingredient, sodium fluoride. Now, don't get me wrong, not every toothpaste out there contains it, but most of them still do. But don't rush to the bathroom to trash your tube. If you swallow a tiny pea-sized glob, it isn't fatal. I'm talking about larger quantities. A toothpaste tube has only 0.15% fluoride. To send you running to the hills, you must consume around 8 tubes one by one, so technically, toothpaste is totally safe. Let's go and look for more dangers at your place, shall we? Personally, I don't have this one, but if you happen to have a CFL light bulb, you gotta be extremely cautious with it. The thing is, many of those bulbs are made with mercury. If such a bulb breaks, you gotta start by turning off your ventilation system. Otherwise, the contamination will only get worse. Make sure everyone has left the room, then open a window to allow for fresh air circulation. Finally, clean the area where the bulb shattered. Be careful to address both wet and dry surfaces and contact specialists. Mercury vapors are definitely the biggest concern when it comes to this element. Take, for instance, a case of 2008, where a 55-year-old guy in Oklahoma tried to extract gold from old electronics using liquid mercury. Unfortunately, he inhaled too much vapor and sadly passed away just 10 days later. The contamination was so severe that they had to completely gut his house. Now, you definitely don't want your favorite clothes to get ruined by moths, so you might grab some mothballs to exterminate them. But watch out, those mothballs can exterminate you too. They usually contain chemicals like naphthalene or paradichlorobenzene. When these get into the air, they turn into gas. That strong smell you associate with mothballs kicks in. Those fumes can actually irritate your eyes and lungs, and may even cause headaches, dizziness, and nausea. Plus, there are concerns about these chemicals being the cause of major conditions that even modern medicine can cure. Naphthalene is especially risky because it can break down your red blood cells, leading to a condition called hemolytic anemia. So try to swap those balls for good old lavender. Moths aren't big fans of it. Now, it's super important to keep an eye on the plants you bring into your home, because some can be surprisingly harmful. Take Dieffenbachia, commonly known as dumb cane, for example. Rumor has it that its sap can cause your tongue to swell up so much that it can block your airway. But can it really? Yes and no. It's true that this plant contains poisonous, tiny needle-like crystals called rapides, but they require someone to actually chew on a leaf first before any fuss happens. Otherwise, you might just feel a brief burning sensation or observe some skin redness. In rare cases, you might see some swelling in the area that touched the plant. Generally, just a little nibble leads to mild discomfort, so please don't snack on your potted plants. This warning is more for the safety of your pets, especially cats. Now, if Dieffenbachia stays in contact with the mouth for too long, it can cause some serious pain that might linger for days or even weeks. In those cases, a trip to the hospital might be necessary, especially if the throat gets affected, as that could impact breathing. But don't believe the hype that Diefenbachia is a lethal poison. That's just an urban legend. The bottom line? One must be really dumb to get poisoned by a dumb cane. Now, using a power washer can be more dangerous than you might think. The intense pressure can lead to serious injuries, and the high-speed spray can kick up debris that might cause even more harm. If you do get injured, infections can set in quickly, and without timely medical care, things can get really serious. Think severe complications, potential limb loss, or even worse. But honestly, it's not that scary. Just don't overdo it with pressure. Here's a friendly tip. Don't skip out on your weekly house cleaning, especially when it comes to the bathroom. The longer you put off cleaning it, the more risky it becomes. Bathrooms are notorious hotspots for bacteria, which makes regular cleaning essential. You definitely don't want those unwelcome guests like norovirus, E. coli, salmonella, or even Staphylococcus aureus hanging around, along with those molds and mildews. Just put things into perspective. An average toilet seat can host over 200,000 colony-forming bacteria. And here's another thing to keep in mind. If you're not careful while cleaning, you can accidentally create a dangerous situation. Mixing bleach and ammonia can release a toxic gas called chloramine. Those fumes can lead to some pretty nasty symptoms, from shortness of breath to fluid in your lungs. Guess what? If it happens, you will probably kick the bucket. And I'm not talking about the one you use for cleaning the floors in the bathroom. On a sweltering summer day, having air conditioning is definitely a blessing. But don't let that trick you into thinking there aren't risks involved. If your AC is on the older side, it can lead to various issues. For example, the ductwork and filters can trap harmful mold, bacteria, and allergens. If those aren't addressed, folks in your home might end up dealing with coughing, wheezing, or a stuffy nose. Plus, an aging AC unit can pose a fire risk. Older components tend to generate more heat as they try to keep up, and if they're not replaced, you could end up with a potential fire hazard. Faulty wiring is another concern, as many wires are tucked away in hard-to-reach spots, making them tough to inspect. So, if you have an older AC, it's a smart move to have it cleaned properly and ensure that its parts and wiring are up to date to avoid any fire risks. Snuggling under a cozy electric blanket when the weather turns chilly sounds like a dream. But if electric blankets get too hot, they might lead to burns. This risk is particularly significant with older models that don't have an automatic shutoff feature. So the best way to use such a blanket is to warm up your bed and then turn it off before you crawl in. There's also the concern of heat stroke, linked to the use of an electric blanket. Once, 2 people were discovered unresponsive in their beds beneath electric blankets. The first person's body temperature reached an alarming 106.2 degrees Fahrenheit, while the second person's temperature was 105.8 degrees Fahrenheit. So while these blankets offer comfort, it's crucial to use them wisely. Just a quick heads up about windshield washer fluid. It contains methanol, which can really pack a punch. If ingested, it can cause everything from dizziness and headaches to severe poisoning. Make sure to store it safely and keep it in the original container. Never transfer it to unmarked bottles. It can easily be confused with water and other harmless liquids, and that's a big no-no. Methanol is super toxic. For a grown-up, 2 to 8 ounces can do the trick. You know what I mean. The windshield washer fluid you dump into your car usually has about 30 to 50% methanol in it. But the concentrated versions? They can pack a serious punch with 90 to 100% methanol. Just remember, these products need to be diluted with water before you use them. The last everyday thing on our list does seem to be a great buddy of ours, especially if located in the bathroom. But although air fresheners can give your home a pleasant scent, many of them release volatile organic compounds that can build up over time and may pose serious health risks, including neurological issues and incurable conditions. I suggest, if you were to ask me, you play it safe and think about opting for natural alternatives or enhancing your home's ventilation instead. Got that? Good. Fitness trackers and fancy smartwatches are fine for monitoring your heart rate and even the miles you cover on a run. They're not so good at measuring the number of calories you burn, though. A 2017 study from the Stanford University School of Medicine showed that fitness trackers and smartwatches have error margins of less than 5% when it comes to measuring heart rates. That's pretty good, so you can be confident in whatever reading you're getting. The problem is with the devices measuring energy expenditure accurately or calendars burned. Even the best was off by an average of 27%. The worst was off by a crazy 93%. That means they're very unreliable and shouldn't be trusted. Fitness trackers don't work well for measuring calories because we all have different heights, weights, diets, and many other things. That means we all burn calories at completely different rates. The trackers are often programmed with a preset average height and weight. So, if you're going to use one, take it with a grain of salt, unless you're trying to reduce your sodium intake. Sunscreens have only one job to do, and that's protecting us from the harmful ultraviolet rays. In 2017, though, a study found that many popular brands failed to protect at all, with only 1 in 4 working. Most sunscreens didn't protect users from ultraviolet A and B rays at all. Some manufacturers also claimed that these products had an SPF of over 50, which sounds very high quality, but the actual SPF was much lower than that. The misleading labeling means we aren't as protected as we think when we're at the beach. So when you're out shopping for sunscreen, make sure you look at the ingredients and apply more than you think you should. Ooh, sports drinks, an essential item for anyone working out. These bright-colored drinks are filled with electrolytes that will increase your performance and rehydrate you fast. The problem is, we're not all athletes, so most people would be better if they just drink water instead. Sports drinks are made up of water with some minerals and lots of sugar, coloring, and flavor. Those minerals are electrolytes, which can help our bodies go longer. Your exercise habits, the duration, and the intensity of your training all come into whether you really need that extra boost. While sports drinks can benefit athletes engaged in long or intense training, they're not really necessary for most gym goers. Sports drinks are probably pointless if you're only doing light to moderate exercise, like walking or jogging, over a short period of time. After using a toaster for most of your life, most people still haven't figured out how to get a perfect heat setting. It turns out that burnt toast is probably just down to a simple misconception. Those numbers on your toaster aren't heat levels at all. They're actually minutes. The dial is basically just a timer. That means all you need to do is look up how long it takes to toast certain things, and you'll never ruin your breakfast again. Hey, I like burnt toast. I'm used to it. Most of us rely on wireless technology to carry out normal everyday tasks. It can be very frustrating when technology stops working and interrupts your day. In fact, the only thing more frustrating might be not knowing why it isn't working. The worst culprit here is your cell phone. It'll often show really great reception, but somehow can't make a phone call. The bars on a cell phone actually don't mean anything. The way they receive the signal differs a lot between different makes and models of phone. There's even a big difference between what the bars mean from one phone to another. Meanwhile, watching a progress bar showing the percentage of time left to complete a download on our phones or PC can be tedious. Sometimes they just seem to be stuck doing nothing. Bad news, they don't really work. At least not in the way we think. The system updates the progress bar when certain milestones are reached. A progress bar at 50% doesn't mean half the file has been downloaded. Almost all the files could have been downloaded. The point of them is to give you something visual to look at. Progress bars aren't accurate because downloads and transfers have too many variables beyond the system's control. Internet speeds and network availability are the coordinators of how quickly a download will complete, while your computer's hard drive determines how fast things process and information gets put in the right files. It's probably best to make a coffee or set things up to download while you're in bed, instead of constantly checking up on an incorrect progress bar. Elsewhere, stopping at a crosswalk and pressing the button hoping the walk signal will come up might just be a waste of your time. It turns out that all that button pushing could be for nothing. Some crosswalk buttons need to be pressed, but others don't do anything at all. The crossing symbol will just light up whenever it wants to. Some crosswalks even switch between needing and not needing a button press, depending on the time of day. That said, it can be difficult for all of us pedestrians to determine whether a crosswalk button works or not. When in doubt, just push the button anyway. You don't want to stand around waiting for no reason. With more people going into the water and sharks, well, living in the water, the fear of bumping into a not-so-friendly shark is ever increasing. This shared water space has pushed many companies to try to create shark repellents. This sounds like a good idea that should help keep both people and sharks more safe. Companies have tried everything: sprays, wetsuits, magnets, wax, and even electronic devices to repel the scary fish. The bad news is none of these products are confirmed to actually work. One in particular makes the sound of an orca. Sharks aren't too fond of being in the same area as them, but does pretending you're an orca stop a shark from biting you? If you feel safer using them, then go right ahead. But if you're looking for a shark deterrent that's 100% effective, it's just not available. Psst, here's what actually works. Stay out of the water. Rushing into an elevator and repeatedly pushing the closed door button in the US is basically a huge waste of time unless you've got the special trick. In 1990, the US passed a Disabilities Act for elevators, which meant that elevators had to ensure that someone with a disability had time to get inside one. If you're on crutches, use a cane, or travel in a wheelchair, you don't have to worry about someone accidentally closing the elevator doors before you've had a chance to pass through them. There's one important loophole to this. If you're an emergency or maintenance worker, you'll have access to keys and codes that make that button operational. This is just another example of a placebo button you're invited to push, just to make you feel like you've done something. That impatient finger poking isn't doing anything. Getting a bit warm or cold in the office? Better adjust that thermostat. Unfortunately, in the vast majority of office buildings, the system controls are kept inside air ducts, not on the wall. Technicians install dummy thermostats to give workers the illusion that they're dramatically changing the air conditioning or heat. Some are set to change 1 or 2 degrees, but they're often not connected to anything at all. Dummy thermostats came about around the 1960s. As heating prices rose, building leases often required employers to stay within specific temperatures. Faced with this problem, fake thermostats became the new rage for businesses. They offer people some feeling of control while keeping the temperature in the right range. Now, ever come across some premium PC cleaning software that promises to clean your PC and make it go as fast as when you purchased it? Yeah! These third-party PC cleaners are often made to seem like they really work, but they usually don't do much of anything at all. They'll detect non-problems and list them as problems. The worst example of this is when they list browser cookies and temporary files as having an effect on the computer's speed, when they don't. It's better to stick to the operating system's built-in cleaner. It'll work fine if you ever need to clean your computer and save you having to splash out on one that does pretty much the same thing. Well, that's all I got. Time to burn some toast.
You've probably noticed that train and bus seats are covered in fabrics with weird patterns. Have any idea why? Well, they use these patterns to cover any germs and stains on the seats. The brighter the color and the more patterned it is, the harder it will be for passengers to notice any stains and get grossed out. Also, the patterns are usually so ugly that no one even wants to look at them for long enough to spot any stains. So yeah, the pattern is there to make you look away, and if you look, to make it less noticeable. No bus will ever have plain white seats, that's a guarantee. Just a few more bus-related questions to answer, like why don't buses have seatbelts? Buses are overall way safer than cars because they were designed this way. The idea behind this is called compartmentalization, meaning that the seats have high backs that absorb energy. The seats are also placed close to one another, so there's less space to move in case of an impact. Also, on a bus, the passengers sit pretty high off the ground, and in case of a collision, the force is absorbed by the bus's deck and not by the people inside. On top of that, a bus is way heavier than most other vehicles, and even if there is a collision, it distributes the force way differently than a regular car. Due to its weight, a lot of force is absorbed, and bus passengers don't experience much crush force. So, small and light buses that can't distribute the force as well actually do require seatbelts. And we have to remember that buses drive slowly, which minimizes the risk of an accident overall. We all know that school buses are yellow, but why? It's for visibility reasons. Yellow is one of the most easily recognized colors, and for a human eye, yellow is even more visible than, say, red. So, school buses are yellow to make them more distinctive. Also, yellow is visible in the dark, in fog, and on a rainy day. Actually, the color of the bus isn't really a true yellow. It also has a hint of orange. This shade even has an official name: National School Bus Glossy Yellow. By the way, taxicabs are yellow for the same reason, to be more visible in any weather conditions. Also, buses have huge steering wheels, and I finally learned why. Buses are bigger than regular cars, and they're also way heavier. So it's harder to turn a bus around, and way more strength is required to do so than when you drive a car. A bigger steering wheel that has a bigger radius allows the driver to turn the vehicle more easily, and it requires less force than if the wheel were smaller. Trucks have big steering wheels for the same reason. But have you seen those stuffed toys that some trucks have attached in front of them? Turns out, it's just a way for truck drivers to customize their vehicles. It's like a mascot that speaks about the truck or the driver. It's also a way to communicate to the world that the truck driver isn't all scary and tough, but a soft and harmless person that you shouldn't be afraid of. At least, that's how some truck drivers explain it. In Asia, there's also a belief that road accidents are caused by ghosts, and hanging toys are a way to distract the ghosts from causing harm to the truck. Ever been on a road trip? If you're not the driver, all you have to do is just sit in one place and do basically nothing for hours. Doesn't sound like a hard task, but some people find it terribly exhausting. And because of this, they resent road trips. Why do they get so tired? Well, sitting in a car isn't like sitting in a chair. The brain doesn't relax. Instead, it controls everything that's going on, accounting for movements and making sure that you maintain the right posture. Your brain is constantly working, exchanging bits of information with your muscles, so your body is working. Some people get tired because of this. If you aren't doing much, it doesn't mean that your body isn't doing much. Train rides are way more tolerable because trains don't stop or change speeds as often as cars do. So the body is more relaxed, and train trips are way more tolerable for people who aren't fans of road trips. Another mystery is why it's way harder to stand still in the same spot for 30 minutes in comparison to, for example, walking for 30 minutes. Again, it sounds like you're not doing anything when you're standing. So why is it so tiring? Well, standing is a pretty hard task for your body. When standing, the muscles in your legs work very hard to support the mass of your whole body. If you're standing, there are not many muscles working, and only a few of them have to do all the work. When walking, there are more muscles working at the same time, so it's easier. Also, when standing, both of your legs are working without stopping. But when walking, each of them gets a tiny break each time you step using the other leg. Why is it that the same book can have different covers? There are several reasons for this. First, the cover may vary because of the target audience. An edition of a book that is being marketed to older people is usually different from the edition aimed at younger people, with the one for younger people usually being brighter and cuter. The cover can also depend on the country the book is being sold in, trying to attract as many buyers as possible based on the tastes of the population. Next, books vary from edition to edition. At first, a book is printed in hardcover in small quantities to see how it'll do on the market. If the book is a relative success, there is another edition printed, often in trade paperback. The design of the cover is usually updated with every edition. Also, if a book has a movie based on it, there is usually another edition that follows. This edition will take advantage of the movie and use a movie scene as the cover, making it recognizable for people who saw and liked the movie, and encouraging them to buy a copy of the book. Most books are printed on yellowish paper, and few have plain white pages. But why is that? Unless it's a mass-market paperback edition, with paper that's the same quality as a newspaper, meaning bad. It's done with good quality paper. Don't let the yellow hue confuse you. It's usually called cream, and it's a preference for any book because it's less tiring on the reader's eyes. The plain white paper is bleached, and it reflects a lot of light, so it can be exhausting to read for a long time. So, that yellowish paper is the best paper, and publishers regularly use it. Another thing about books is those blank pages they often have at the very end. Their number depends on the number of pages in the book. The thing is that books are printed in signature. A signature is a group of pages that printers fold together and cut to make a book. A signature can have a different number of book pages, with the minimum being 4 and then with other numbers divisible by 4. So, A book that is 300 pages long in total will fit in perfectly, and there will be no blank pages left. But if a book needs 303 pages, it'll need an additional signature, and the extra pages will remain blank, often marked with the word "Notes" or with the message, "This page is intentionally left blank," to let the reader know that there's no important information missing. Ever wondered why most doctors have sloppy handwriting? No, there's no class in medical colleges on bad handwriting. The reason why it's so common is that doctors are always in a rush, and they write as fast as possible to keep their momentum, so there's no time to care about writing nicely. Also, keep in mind that you're not the only person who they write a prescription for over the course of a day. Doctors do a lot of paperwork, working for 10 hours straight, and they're just too tired most of the time to give you a properly written note. Have you noticed that most songs, in general, last somewhere between 3 and 4 minutes? Well, originally, songs were being played on a phonograph record player from a vinyl record, which was spinning at 78 revolutions per minute. So, the size of the vinyl record basically determined the length of the song. There were two basic record sizes, a 10-inch one, which had room for about 3 minutes of playtime, and a 12-inch, which could fit a 4-minute song. So, at the beginning of the 20th century, if an artist wanted their song played, they couldn't make it longer than that if they wanted to be able to sell a record. Times have changed, but still, most songs are about 3 to 4 minutes long. The initial reason for sticking to this pattern was also because of radio. If a song was too long, it would either get cut in half or some parts would be left off to make it fit into the 3 to 5 minute radio standard. If an artist wanted the song on the radio, and if they wanted to earn money from it, they'd do their best to make a song that fits the standard, so that the whole piece could be played without alterations. Today, even if there are longer songs, a 3 to 4 minute song is now a tradition that artists typically stick to.
Trains used to make people mad. During the Victorian era, there was this rumor that the swaying motion of train carriages made passengers, especially men, go a bit crazy, leading to some strange and dangerous behavior. The so-called railway madness was supposedly triggered by the noise of the train. To make things worse, carriages were locked for privacy reasons back then, so people found themselves stuck in tiny spaces with lunatics who could snap at any moment. If you see someone putting ketchup on some car, it doesn't mean you're witnessing them preparing a prank. It means they're just taking care of their car. Yup, it goes great with hamburgers and hot dogs, but it goes even better with cars since it has ingredients that are good at removing rust. Rust occurs when the metal gets exposed to moisture, oxygen, and heat, and due to weather conditions, it's hard to avoid it. When you leave rust for a longer time and don't deal with it, it will continue to degrade the metal. So, you need to get rid of it before your car becomes physically useless. That's when ketchup comes in. Its key ingredient is tomatoes, and they have many nutrients similar to those you can find in oranges and some other citrus fruits. For instance, citric acid can help you remove rust from metal surfaces since it eats through rust. We're not talking about the cars only. You can use it on metallic kitchenwares, furniture parts, jewelry, and rust spots on generally any metallic item. You can combine it with washing soda. It's not quite effective against rust, but when you combine it with ketchup, it'll do the work. Mix these two and apply them to the rusted area. Leave it like that for about half an hour and wash it with a wet cloth or sponge. You can combine ketchup with salt instead, or just apply a lot of it on the rusty area without using any additional ingredients. Ketchup removes tarnish from brass copper too. Put it on brass hardware on doors and cabinets, or some accessories such as bowls and candlesticks for 10 minutes to make it all shine. And also, you don't put it on meat just because of taste. Ketchup breaks down its fibers, which means it makes it more tender. Locking handles as we know them were only invented relatively recently, in 1878. Before that, people had to get pretty inventive to secure their homes. Most folks used a latch string. They'd make a small hole in the door, thread a leather thong or string through it, and then loop it around a wooden bar. Even after doorknobs were invented, only the wealthy could afford a proper lock and key. Vacuum cleaners had a rough start too. The first one was invented in 1901, but it was so huge that it wouldn't fit inside houses. Instead, vacuuming was offered as a mobile service. The machines were parked outside, and long hoses were fed through the windows. And to get to the client's house, these large cleaning machines were actually pulled by horses. Back in the day, animals even used to pull strollers. Yep, with kids inside. The stroller was first developed in 1733 for the daughters and sons of a British nobleman who might have been a bit too lazy to walk with them every day. So, the first model was basically a shell-shaped basket on wheels that could be pulled by a goat or a small pony. This small chariot was cute, but probably not the safest way to get around. Refrigerators also used to be a bit scary. From the late 1800s until 1929, they used toxic gases like ammonia, methyl chloride, and sulfur dioxide to cool things down. People were so concerned about gas leaks that they began leaving their refrigerators in the backyard instead of keeping them in the kitchen. This danger even inspired Albert Einstein to create a new model. In 1926, Einstein and his former student Leo Szilard invented a refrigerator with no moving parts, using safer, environmentally friendly gases to reduce the risk of toxic leaks. But it had one problem. Einstein's refrigerator was less efficient than existing appliances, so it wasn't commercially appealing. If you ever find yourself casually wandering in the forests of Estonia, don't freak out if you see some giant megaphones. These wooden, acoustic giants were set 3 hours away from the country's capital by interior architecture students. That's way cooler than the hamster roller coaster I once built for a science fair, I have to admit. More than half of Estonia is covered by woods, and they're pretty proud of this natural wealth. So it's not the first art project of this kind, and there was a winding, elevated pathway and a faceted woodland cabin. The idea of the megaphones is to crank up the natural sounds of a forest and also to serve as a rest spot for hikers. These wooden beauties are large enough to host several people. And hey, if you walk this far into the woodland, you'll be thankful for this. The students were given a task to invent some concepts of a forest library. They built the megaphones off-site and brought them to their permanent spots. They're set in such a way that sounds from 3 directions meet in the center and create a cool, natural surround sound effect. Thankfully, kitchen supplies, including our beloved grills, have come a long way. Back in the 1950s, a metalworker named George Stephen had a brilliant idea while trying to create the perfect steak. Frustrated with flare-ups and uneven cooking, he decided to cut an old ocean buoy in half. This allowed him to control the airflow better. And that's how the Weber Kettle Grill was born, changing backyard barbecues forever. Have you ever used a public bathroom in the summer in your shorts and sandals and got splashed? It happens to the best of us, so no worries. If only there was some solution to this problem. Perhaps a urinal with a small hole so no liquid goes where it shouldn't. Looks pretty yucky and painful to me. An assistant professor at the University of Waterloo, Zhao Pen, and his colleagues came up with a way better solution for this sensitive issue. Their designs were inspired by physics and dogs. When a stream of liquid moves on a solid surface at a shallow angle, the splash is reduced, and the smaller the angle, the fewer splashes you'll see. You can even minimize them to a 0. And when dogs do their business, they lift their hind legs and do it on the vertical surface of a tree or a wall. I don't know if they actually care about it, but this does reduce the splash. Good job, Pluto. Talking about that, here's a fun challenge for your next family gathering. Ask everyone to fold a piece of paper in half, then in half again, and keep going for a total of 7 folds. Spoiler alert, they probably won't succeed. That's because each fold makes the paper thicker and thicker. In fact, if you had a huge sheet of paper and folded it in half 50 times, it would end up being about 62 million miles thick, which is about 2/3 of the way from Earth to the Sun. So yeah, it's impossible. The current record is held by a high school student named Brittany Gallivan, who managed to fold a single piece of paper in half 12 times, and it was a tissue paper. The USB symbol, looking like a trident, has always sparked multiple speculations about its origin. One popular idea is that it represents Neptune's trident and symbolizes power and adaptability. But there's also a little bit less exciting theory. A man who claimed to have designed the symbol in the 1980s stated that it was supposed to represent connectivity. The large circle symbolizes a computer, while the attached shapes, the circle, the triangle, and square, stand for different outputs. Look closely at a tram's overhead lines, and you'll see that its contact wires zigzag back and forth instead of going in a straight line. That's because all trams have pantographs attached to their roofs. The upper part of the pantograph is gradually worn down by the overhead wire and eventually needs to be replaced. To wear it down evenly, the wire is not installed strictly along the tram's path, but in zigzag patterns. As the tram moves, the pantograph slides along the wire, and it wears down evenly. Those cone-shaped water cooler cups? Their shape is intentionally designed to prevent users from setting the cups down. This allows employees to minimize the risk of spilling water on their desks around various electronic devices. Plus, less material is used to produce cone-shaped cups, which makes the process less wasteful and more cost-effective. It also kinda supports sustainability by encouraging people to drink their water quickly and dispose of their cups immediately after. You're probably wearing a YKK product right now. I mean, go check the zipper on your jeans. Yep, that's it. YKK stands for Yoshida Kogyo Kabushiki Kaisha, a Japanese company that makes roughly half of all the zippers in the world, producing over 7 billion zippers each year. Originally called hookless fasteners, they became known as zippers after a pair of rubber boots that could be fastened with a single zip became popular in 1923. The name stuck because of the high-pitched zip sound they make when used. Despite a popular myth, household batteries don't actually contain liquid, and if you accidentally cut them open, no toxic liquid will spill. Most of them are dry cell batteries, which are made of electrochemical cells. Those convert chemical energy into electrical energy. Larger batteries often house numerous small cells within them too. Even Tesla vehicle batteries consist of multiple small cells. When combined, they easily provide the necessary voltage. Did you know that nail polish used to be a status symbol? In ancient Egypt, queens like Nefertiti and Cleopatra were famous for their red nails, while lower-ranking citizens were only allowed to wear pale shades. You'll probably agree that there's no better snack than a pack of chips. Some are flat, others have ridges. Is it just aesthetics? Not really. The main purpose of those lines on some kinds of chips is to help with the distribution of spices and seasonings. In other words, all those substances that make your chips taste like cheese are mostly stored inside the lines. Plus, the lines make chips crunchier. This item here was also popular in ancient Egypt. What looks like a weird bench was actually a weird type of pillow. Back then, headrests were made from materials like wood, ceramic, and stone. Unlike our comfy pillows today, those ancient ones were used to protect people's hairstyles. That way, their hairdos stayed neat, even though they had a very uncomfortable night. If you've left a pot on the stove and your food burned, once again, take ketchup. Its acids will ease all the scrubbing and help you with grease. Just leave it over the night and you'll be able to wash the pot more easily. Or keep those small packages of ketchup we all end up having from fast food orders in the freezer. The ketchup won't be as hard as an ice cube as it freezes. So it will be good for soothing insect bites or similar things. For 8 centuries, forks were considered cursed and nearly forbidden in the West. The first models were used by the elite in the Middle East and the Byzantine Empire, and they made their way to the West in 1004, thanks to a noblewoman named Maria Agrippina. People were pretty shocked by it, to say the least. So when she passed away just 2 years later, everyone blamed the fork, thinking it was some kind of divine punishment. By the way, its name comes from the Latin word furca, which means pitchfork. Next on our list is Nike's iconic moon shoe, but I'm talking about the unique pattern of its sole. Back in the 1970s, Nike co-founder Bill Bowerman was making waffles for breakfast with his wife when he had a sudden idea to pour a plastic material called polyurethane into the waffle iron. The machine was ruined, of course, but I guess it was worth it since that's how the first Nike waffle trainer was born. I mean, its soul. That clear fluid in gel pens is called the ink follower or stopper fluid. The gel in such pens contains pigment particles dissolved in a polymer solution. The main task of the stopper fluid is to be a barrier to prevent the gel from evaporating or leaking out. Without this transparent fluid, your gel pen wouldn't function. The fluid always stays in one position and doesn't get dissolved with the gel. Neither does it move backwards or flow out of the pen. Let's move on to another favorite snack, popcorn. These days, cinema and popcorn go hand in hand, but it wasn't always this way. In the 1920s and 1930s, movie theater owners were hesitant to allow snacks in their theaters. They were worried about the mess and the crunching noises interfering with movies. Plus, popcorn used to cost only 5 to 10 cents, so they didn't see any financial benefit. But savvy street vendors saw a big chance. So, they got their own popcorn machines and started selling them outside theaters. That's why popcorn probably became the original clandestine movie snack, and theater staff would even have to check if people were hiding bags of it in their coats. Have you ever helped your friends move into a new apartment in a building without an elevator? Then you're gonna love this one. Houses in Amsterdam have hooks on top. This is a medieval invention for pulling stuff up the houses. The simple tech consisting of a wheel and a rope still functions now, centuries later. Why not just use the stairs? Well, if you get inside one of those narrow Amsterdam buildings, you'll see there's hardly enough room to comfortably ascend, and you can forget about even trying to pull a table on top. Back in the medieval ages, pretty much like now, only rich people could afford housing around the canals in the best parts of the city. Those people were mostly traders and used the canals for their business. They stored goods in the same houses they lived in, and with regular floods, they had to find a way to keep the goods dry. And that's why they needed to invent something to lift furniture, goods, boxes, instruments, and food on the upper floors, and pull it in through fully open, wide windows. The lifting tech is one of the reasons the houses in Amsterdam are leaning forward. This position helped keep both the lifted stuff and the walls and windows safe during transportation. They didn't have to touch each other. The gables also assisted in the process and had to be made firm to withstand all the heavy weight. And in case you're wondering what gables are, they're sections of wall between the edges of a dual-pitched roof, typical for Amsterdam. Sticking with old-school fun, it's time to talk about cards. So, have you ever wondered how many times you need to riffle a deck to shuffle it completely? The answer is 7 times, according to math. Even cooler, if you shuffle a deck right, you're probably creating a unique order that's never existed before and never will again. And if you have a deck at hand, check out the 4 kings. You'll notice that the King of Hearts is the only one without a mustache. He's not special or anything. I mean, he also used to have a mustache, but it was lost in the reproduction of the original design. Your home has more regular things that can do magic tricks. Like if you have a house or a big terrace and want to make a nice flower wall. Try old mattress springs. Just hang them on the wall and let your imagination run wild with flowers. An old flower sifter can still come in handy, for example, as a planter. Even if you don't have one, you might find it at a garage sale or a thrift store. Wallpaper is making its big comeback when it comes to home design. Maybe you can try something different and use some old books with torn pages. You just need to learn the basics of hanging wallpaper, and voila! You get a new cool place for your old books. There's a solution for the remains of an old book. Don't worry, you can have blocks where you'll keep your kitchen knives. It's pretty original, don't you think? Solitaire was probably everyone's go-to game to pass the time back in the 1990s. But its original purpose was far from it. When developers created this game, their idea was to teach people how to use a computer without them even realizing it. For example, dragging and dropping cards into one place helped people learn how to move files into folders. The same goes for Minesweeper, which was designed to help people get used to using a mouse and clicking. Cleaning blinds can be frustrating, but the next time you do it, try doing it with a sock over your hand. Hands are kind of perfectly shaped for getting all those nooks and crannies on the blinds, and the sock will do the rest. Here's something you wouldn't expect. Ice cubes can help you remove gum from carpet, clothing, and hair. Just put your clothes in the sink and add ice cubes. Leave it like that for a while. Ice will freeze the gum, so you can chip it away more easily. If the gum got stuck on the carpet, leave ice cubes right in the critical spot and remove the gum with a butter knife. It's a little bit harder to remove it from hair though, but still possible. Just wrap the ice and parts of your hair with the gum in a washcloth until the gum gets frozen. When you get there, you should be able to break apart the gum and free your hair using your fingers. Or next time you have to deal with a splinter, just take one ice cube to numb that area before you even start doing anything. You might have noticed that movie theater seats are almost always red. This choice isn't random. It has strategic importance, which is rooted in visual science. The thing is, red light has a longer wavelength. It means that it's the first color to disappear in low light. It allows the audience to concentrate better on the screen once the movie begins. Such a design choice enhances the viewing experience by minimizing distractions. Speed bumps are crucial for pedestrian safety, but at the same time, they can seriously increase car emissions due to the non-stop acceleration and deceleration they cause. To address this issue, some cities like London are testing fake speed bumps. Those are optical illusions painted on the road. They look raised from a driver's perspective, but in reality, they're flat. Authorities hope that this approach will slow down drivers without having a negative impact on the environment. Soda bottles are always filled in such a way that there's some space between the liquid and the cap. That's because soda contains carbon dioxide. It's a gas that can expand once the bottle's heated. If there's no gap in the bottle, it can break because of the pressure building inside. Also, when you open your drink, the gases go out in the form of bubbles, making the drink overflow. The gap helps with this problem too. If you're more into Angry Birds, Candy Crush, and other mobile games, that's totally normal. After all, more people have access to cell phones than to toilets these days. But not many of us stop to think about how disgusting our phones can be. The natural bacteria from our skin and the oils from our hands get transferred to our phones with every touch, swipe, and tap. This makes phones about 10 times dirtier than toilet seats. Yikes!
So listen, if you don't want your next barbecue party to end up at the emergency room, you might want to get rid of that wire brush you used to clean the grill. Over 100 people have to seek medical help because of it every year. Those brass and steel bristles easily separate from the brush and stick to cooked food that ends up in your mouth. With each swallow, they go deeper and deeper. They can poke into or puncture the lining of your mouth, throat, and esophagus, or somewhere else down your intestinal tract. The symptoms this causes could be signs of many different conditions, and because of their tiny size, the bristles are really tricky for doctors to spot. So you can lose the precious time to solve the problem at an early stage. In some cases, one ER visit can solve the problem, but if the bristle moves into deeper tissues, say into your neck, chest, or abdomen, well, it could start an infection, and you'd need some complex surgery to save your life. That was the case for a 63-year-old lady in Michigan. She was eating a hot dog grilled by her husband, and she felt something was wrong from the first bite. She could barely swallow the food because of an unusually painful sore throat and had to see the doctors for help. They sent her home after an inspection, but the symptoms only got worse and worse. A CT scan several months later showed the problem was some tiny metallic object that looked like a piece of hair at the back of her throat. The doctors were able to remove it during surgery. So, to play it safe, take good care of your wire grill brush and inspect it before putting food on it. If you see any loose or dangling wire bristles, get rid of them. If this sounds like too much work, just toss that brush altogether. There are some safe alternatives to it, like wooden panels, pumice stone, nylon bristle brush, or liquid grill cleaner. You can also roll a piece of aluminum foil into a ball and use grill tongs to hold it while you're scrubbing your dirty grill grates. Cooking pros say an onion cut in half can also do the job. The caterpillar that arrived at your barbecue party as an uninvited guest might seem cute and harmless, but not all of them are safe to pick up and play with. There are several types of venomous caterpillars in the US alone that can give you a hard time. Any brightly colored caterpillar that has a spine, bristles, or looks fuzzy could be venomous, and you're better off not touching it. Many caterpillars are equipped with hairs or spines, which are connected to poisonous glands. They often hide on the underside of the leaf, so you could easily miss it. So, when you're doing some work in the garden, it's a good idea to wear gloves and clothes with long sleeves. Your skin will thank you for it. If you get stung by accident, use any sticky tape to remove the hair or spines, and then just wash the affected spot with soap and water. If you plan to go swimming or boating to cool down after the party, remember that algal blooms aren't just a freaky splash of color in the water, but a real problem. They are toxic and can cause a lot of trouble for you and your pets. The symptoms will be less than pleasant, and will involve you spending a great deal of time in the bathroom. Algae bloom means there are plenty of bacteria in the water, so don't swim in it and don't drink the water, no matter how thirsty you are after all the swimming. And if you happen to get some ingested water on your skin, take a long shower with clean water immediately. The media should report cases of dangerous algae blooms in your area, so make sure to check it before you hit the nearest lake. Wild parsnip might not appear in your summer nightmares, but this yellow-flowered plant can do some really mean things to your body. It contains a substance called solerin, and when you accidentally touch it and then enjoy a walk in the sun, the effect it will leave on your skin will be as nasty as the name Sorolin. And you could have dark red or brownish discoloration on your skin for months after your unwanted rendezvous with the plant. It's mostly active and mischievous between May and July, so watch out. Alright, a garden hose must be completely safe as, unlike the grill brush, it doesn't have any small metallic parts, right? Well, when you leave it hanging out in direct sunlight, the water inside can heat up to 120 degrees Fahrenheit. If you spray someone with water this hot, their skin won't love it. It's especially dangerous for youngsters and pets. So, if you see someone blissfully unaware, grab the hose, take it from them by force if needed, and let the water run for a few moments before you let anyone play with the hose. It's for their own good. The intense sun can also heat up all the bad chemicals the hose itself contains, like lead and phthalates. So, check what yours is made of and replace it with a safer version that's labeled lead-free or drinking water safe if you plan to use the water for drinking or playing. And if you already have a safe version, but suddenly smell a terrible odor, it could be the algae and bacteria that just love stagnant water. If it comes into contact with your skin, or you swallow it by accident, you could have some serious health problems. The best you can do is replace the hose. And yes, make sure you keep it in a cool, shaded area and drain it well after every use. Now, you're never too old to love the trampolines, but the trampoline might not love you back and give you a spinal injury or broken bones. Almost 100,000 injuries like this with young users happen every year because they're so easy to fall from or land in the worst possible way during a somersault or a flip. The biggest risk of trampoline trouble is when more than one person is using this fun contraption. Nearly 75% of all accidents with trampolines happen when two jumping youngsters crash into one another. And no, some netting or padding really can't save the day. If you want to keep things safe, make sure there's always only one person at a time on the trampoline. You're going to need to install shock-absorbing pads that completely cover the trampoline's metal frame, springs, and hooks. If you see any signs of the padding getting too old, like tears and fraying, you need to replace it immediately. Make sure the trampoline stands on level ground and isn't too close to other structures and trees. A slide in your backyard, no matter if it's made of metal or plastic, can turn into a frying pan under the sun and can heat up to 189 degrees Fahrenheit. So, before you jump on it or let someone else do it, check the temperature of the whole thing top to bottom. And even when your little sister or someone else you love is begging you to go on a ride with them, don't do it. The slide is designed for one person of a certain size. When the two of you end up tandem sliding, the smaller leg can get caught up between the bigger leg and the edge of the slide. The speed will also increase, and it can lead to all sorts of drama. Finally, no matter how tempting it feels in the hot months, don't walk barefoot on that beautiful lawn in the park or even in your own garden. You never know what's hiding in the grass, and if you step on something sharp, like a rusty nail hiding in the grass, you'll get yourself into a lot of trouble. Flip-flops aren't the best idea for everyday summer shoes either. They rarely come with arch support and can make you take shorter steps and put more stress on your body. It's just not good for your feet, joints, and muscles. Otherwise, have a great summer!
A doctor is about to perform a surgery. He positions the lamp over the patient and… wait, what? His hand doesn't cast a shadow. And it shouldn't, because even one little dark spot could ruin a life-saving operation. This magic happens thanks to a large number of light bulbs. Each LED shines on the patient from a different angle, creating overlapping patterns. A sensor detects any obstacles and compensates for shadows by dimming some LEDs and increasing the output of the others. Harry Potter's invisibility cloak is now a reality. Well, sort of. Meet metamaterial, a futuristic fishnet that can make things invisible by manipulating electromagnetic waves. What happens is that when light hits an object, it either gets absorbed or bounces back. Either way, it makes the object visible. But with metamaterial, instead of absorbing or reflecting light, it bends it around objects, making them invisible to the unaided eye. The bad news is that, for now, it only works with specific wavelengths of light, like radio waves. So this invisibility cloak doesn't work with visible light, the things we can actually see, just yet. In Sweden, two women managed to create an invisible bike helmet. Well, okay, maybe not that invisible since you have to wear this thing around your neck for it to work. This neck piece has a sensor with a special algorithm that can distinguish between regular biking and a crash. So, if a cyclist is wearing this and gets into an accident, the sensor automatically activates and inflates the neck piece with cold helium gas, instantly deploying the helmet that looks like a head airbag. And if you're worried about the helmet tearing after hitting the ground, don't be. It's made of super strong nylon fabric designed to handle pretty much any strong impact. Well, it seems we're not quite masters of invisibility yet, but transparency is a different story. Back in the 90s, a botanist in Germany managed to create a see-through wood. This invention was almost forgotten for decades, but recently, a group of researchers upgraded the material to make it tougher than glass. Regular wood is like a bundle of tiny straws held together by a natural glue called lignin, which gives it strength and color. To make wood transparent, scientists remove or bleach lignin, leaving a white, skeleton-like structure. Then, they fill these cells with a clear substance like epoxy resin, making the wood see-through. But don't worry, you won't be walking into forests full of invisible trees anytime soon. The idea is to use this technology to create things that need to be tough, like windows and smartphone screens. Seeing things that aren't really there, like holograms, is seriously bizarre. This technology is basically like watching 3D images of real objects, but without the need to put on those old-school 3D glasses. To create a hologram of a flower, for example, you start by pointing a laser at a special mirror. This process will split the laser beam into two parts. One part bounces off another mirror, illuminates the flower, and then hits a photographic plate. The other part of the beam bounces off a different mirror and goes straight onto the same photographic plate. When these two beams come together, they make a 3D picture of the flower. So basically, a hologram is an optical illusion of epic proportion. Levitation is probably the greatest magic trick of all time. While magicians typically use optical illusions to make things appear to rise and hover in the air, Science can actually achieve it in the real world. A process known as quantum levitation allows materials known as superconductors to float above magnets. You see, these materials naturally repel magnetic fields, but some allow a few magnetic lines to pass through. This creates tiny vortices where magnetic flux can pass, helping the superconductor remain suspended, kind of locked in the middle of the magnetic field, defying gravity. Last year, outfits that changed colors and patterns right before our eyes went viral. This incredible fashion trick was achieved using photochromic materials. When this type of fabric is exposed to sunlight, UV radiation causes electrons to transfer between different states, which alter their optical and electrical properties. In simple words, they change colors. Since natural sunlight intensity varies all the time, the colors of the outfits also shift constantly. Unfortunately, the effect only lasts for about 3 minutes. Sure, you might wear something that changes colors, but would you eat it? I'm not talking about a banana ripening from green to yellow. I'm talking about chameleon, an ice cream made in a lab that tastes like Tutti Frutti and has a superpower. It changes color in your mouth. This treat shifts from lavender blue to pink upon touching your tongue. Although the physicist who invented it is pretty secretive about the recipe, we do know that the magic comes from how the treat reacts to changes in temperature and acids in your mouth. Oh, and the inventor also mentioned you can spray something he calls love elixir onto the ice cream to speed up the reaction. Science has advanced to the point where we can actually make it rain and snow. This technique is called cloud seeding, and although it might seem like an X-Men superpower, it is pretty easy to understand how it works. First, the weather needs to be cloudy. Once a cloud forms, workers at a control center send a plane to the area to stimulate rainfall. As soon as the brave pilot enters the cloud, the plane releases tiny particles, such as silver iodide, into the air. These particles help water droplets form and grow, which produces rain. Sounds simple, right? But playing storm is pricey. An average 4-hour operation that seeds 24-hour clouds would cost around $5,000. If the storm gets too loud, just grab your noise-canceling headphones for some quiet time. These magical gadgets work by listening to the noises around you. Then their built-in microphones create sound waves that are the opposite. When these opposite sound waves mix with the noise, they cancel each other out, making everything quieter and clearer. Concrete often has a problem. It cracks, which makes it less durable, and that's not good. So the smart move is to go for self-healing concrete. This magical material has tiny capsules or nanotubes inside that are filled with healing agents like calcium carbonate. When a crack forms and hits these capsules, they burst open from pressure or moisture exposure. This releases the healing agent into the crack, where it mixes with things in the air like water or carbon dioxide to toughen up the concrete again. If you're planning to build a house, you should consider using a 3D printer. I know it might sound crazy, but nowadays it's completely possible to print an entire 500 square foot house in just 24 hours. It kinda works the same way as a regular 3D printer. First, you design the house plans on a computer. Then you send it to print. That's when colossal robotic arms come into play, laying down layers and layers of a special concrete mixture that harden as they go. Magic sand may look like an innocent toy, but it defies logic. I mean, it is sand that remains dry even underwater. But here's how it works. The sand is coated with a hydrophobic compound, which causes the grains to stick together and form cylinders when submerged in water. So if you put the sand in an aquarium, for instance, this compound will create an air pocket around the sand, keeping it completely dry. Talking about toys, did you have a boomerang when you were young? It is pretty fascinating how it always comes back into your hand. The trick behind it lies in its L shape. A boomerang is designed with 2 or more wings positioned in a special way so that when it spins, it generates unbalanced aerodynamic forces that curve its path into an ellipse, allowing it to return to the spot from which it was thrown. Of course, this only works when it's thrown correctly. so maybe it's better to avoid using it altogether, especially inside your house. Some men wear shoes with hidden heel lifts to look taller. Such shoes can make a person up to 6 inches taller. They look like regular shoes, but inside they have this extra insert. Sometimes such an insert is glued down. Sometimes it's removable, and you can choose the height you need yourself. When the Titanic hit the iceberg and sank sometime later, the Atlantic Ocean was around 28 degrees Fahrenheit, which means the water was below its freezing point. No wonder so many passengers didn't make it. Some birds have a row of bristles protruding from the edges of their eyelids. Those bristles can probably be called eyelashes, but while human eyelashes are modified hairs meant to protect the eye, bird eyelashes are modified feathers. Identical twins don't actually have the same fingerprints, so you can't blame your misdeeds on your sibling after all. Different factors during development in the womb, like the position of the womb, umbilical cord length, and the rate of finger growth, impact fingerprints. Earth's rotation speed is changing. It's slowing down right now while we're talking. It means that, on average, the length of the day gets 1.8 seconds longer every century. 600 million years ago, a day lasted a mere 21 hours. Most world maps are wrong. On the majority of maps, they still use the Mercator projection, which was the first developed in 1569. But this method is very inaccurate and makes Alaska look as large as Brazil, while in reality, it's 5 times smaller. As for Greenland, it looks 14 times larger than it actually is. For a map to be precise, it would need to be life-sized and round, not flat. Ants don't have lungs. They breathe through tiny openings known as spiracles. An ant may have 9 or 10 of those on each side of the body, depending on the species. The average color of the universe is poetically called cosmic latte. In a 2002 study, scientists discovered that the light coming from other galaxies averaged into a beige color that was very close to white, just like the drink beloved by many. There is such a thing as minus decibels. The quietest place on Earth is Microsoft's anechoic chamber in Redmond, USA. The level of sound there is minus 20.6 decibels. Such chambers are built out of heavy concrete and bricks and are placed on springs to stop vibrations from entering the chamber through the floor. Bananas are radioactive. Wait, where did you go? It's not that bad. Bananas are rich in potassium, so each banana is slightly radioactive due to the natural isotope potassium-40. On the other hand, your body contains around 16 milligrams of potassium-40, so you're actually about 280 times more radioactive than that poor banana. And in any case, your body gets rid of that excess potassium-40 from a banana within several hours. There's simply no such thing as a straight line. You just need to zoom in close enough and you're bound to spot some irregularities. Even a laser light beam is a bit curved. In emergencies, fish form orderly lines. For example, when evacuating through narrow spaces in dangerous situations, school of neon tetrafish queue so that they don't crash into one another or clog up the line. Scientists think that this behavior means that fish can respect social rules even in emergency situations, unlike us humans. Hippos can't swim. These animals have large bones. These bones are so big and dense that it makes hippos barely buoyant at all. So these animals don't swim. Instead, they perform something like a slow-motion gallop on the riverbed. Hippos can also sleep underwater thanks to a reflex that allows them to rise to the surface, take a breath, and sink back down to the bottom without waking up. Lego bricks can withstand compression better than concrete. A regular plastic Lego brick can support the weight of 375,000 other bricks before it breaks. Theoretically, it could allow you to build a tower more than 2 miles in height. But if we decide to scale this up to house-sized bricks, the price would be exorbitant. If you ever go to space, you can take your yo-yo with you. In 2012, NASA astronaut Don Petit took a yo-yo on board the International Space Station and used it to show some tricks. You see, a yo-yo mostly relies on the laws of conservation of angular momentum to perform tricks. And if you keep the string taut, these laws apply in microgravity too. There's a theory that claims that we sweat when we're anxious to alert the brains of other people that they're primed for that danger that's making us feel anxiety. Brain scans have revealed that when you sniff the sweat produced by a panicking person, regions of the brain responsible for emotional and social signals light up. And when you are anxious, your sympathetic nervous system produces hormones, including adrenaline, which switches on your sweat glands. There are rainbows on Venus, and they're called glories. A glory looks like a series of colored concentric rings and is caused by the interference of light waves inside droplets rather than the process of reflection, refraction, and dispersion of light, which produces rainbows. Protons look like bagels, spheres, peanuts, and rugby balls. In other words, protons come in different shapes and sizes. Their appearance changes based on the speed of quarks, smaller particles within them. If you look at the moon while being in the southern hemisphere, it will seem to be upside down, and the man on the moon will look more like a rabbit. You will remember more of your dreams if you sleep badly and wake up many times throughout the night. You're also more likely to remember your dream if someone or something wakes you up in the middle of it. Dogs tilt their heads while listening to people to pinpoint familiar words like walkies more effectively. It also helps them to understand the tone of your voice better. There's also an idea that if a dog doesn't tilt its head often, it's because it relies more on sight and less on sound. Mirrors facing each other won't produce infinite reflections. Each next reflection will be darker than the previous one, and eventually, they will fade into invisibility. Mirrors absorb just a fraction of the energy of the light falling on them, so the total number of reflections mirrors can produce is around several hundred. You can smell ants, since many species of these insects produce strong-smelling chemicals when they feel threatened or angry, or when they're being squished. Trapjaw ants release a chocolatey smell when they're crushed, and citronella ants give off a lemony odor when they're threatened. Giraffes hum when they want to communicate with each other. Researchers think that this low-frequency humming might be a form of contact call between individuals that have been separated from their herd. It can also help giraffes find each other in the dark. But the coolest thing about these magnificent animals? Some scientists think that they could sleep talk too. And a cool bonus story for you. About a marathon runner who took over 50 years to finish the race. Japanese marathoner runner Shizo Kanekuri was selected as one of the 2 athletes that Japan could send to the 1912 Stockholm Olympics. But Kanekuri shockingly disappeared during the marathon race. It turned out that after a rough 18-day-long trip to Stockholm, first by ship and then by train, the man was exhausted. During the race, he stopped running because his condition simply didn't allow him to run further. The athlete stumbled into a nearby garden party where he drank orange juice and stayed for a while to recover. Later, Kanekuri was so embarrassed by his failure that he returned to Japan without notifying anyone, including race officials. So, Swedish authorities considered him missing for 50 years before finding out that he was peacefully living in his home country. In 1967, the athlete was offered the opportunity to finish his run. He accepted. 54 years, 8 months, 6 days, 5 hours, 32 minutes, and 20.3 seconds after he started the race, he completed the marathon. It was a long trip. Along the way, the man got married, had 6 kids, and 10 grandchildren.
Here's how you can protect your bank card from potential fraudsters. Use a marker and cover the last 4 digits. You can also use a sticker that's easy to remove and place it over the security code. Have you had a house guest that didn't use a coaster? Get a hairdryer and hold it a couple of inches away from the stain. Blow it on medium heat for a couple of minutes to evaporate the watermark. If a faded ring remains, mix equal amounts of vinegar and olive oil in a bowl. Wipe it onto the marked area and rub it in until the stain disappears. Then wipe it off. Don't waste time scrubbing the burnt stains off the bottom of a pan. Instead, fill it with water and add 3 tablespoons of salt. Let it sit overnight as the salt dissolves the burnt marks, and in the morning, pour the water out of the pan. This way, it will be much easier to scrub all that grease off. Picture this. You're on vacation and your shirt has become all crinkled inside the luggage. You need it tonight, but the hotel doesn't have an iron. Don't panic. Hang the shirt up in the bathroom, and while you relax in a hot shower, the heat and moisture will unwrinkle your shirt. It won't be perfect, but it will get much better without any effort. The football is on, and it turns out you've run out of standard batteries. You can use a smaller battery instead that easily fits inside. Now take some aluminum foil and crunch it up. Fit it into the gap on the negative or flat end of the battery. All done. You can turn on the TV now. Once your flip-flops crack and the plug easily slips out of the hole, it's normally a sign that you need a new pair. But there's a way to extend their mileage. Push the plug back through the hole, then take a bread clip and attach it to the end. The clip will provide enough support for the plug to remain in place. You've received a package and the receipt is taped on. You've managed to detach it from the box. But how to separate the tape without ripping the paper? Hold both ends of the tape apart, and by pulling it slowly, the tape stretches and separates itself from the paper without tearing it apart. Ziploc bags are perfect to keep things dry, but it would be great if they were larger. Take two and turn one of them inside out. They can now connect and work as one large bag, big enough to protect a keyboard. There's no need to carry your keys in your hand when you go for a jog. Instead, put them inside your pocket, take a rubber band, then tie it around the pocket from the inside. This stops the keys from falling out. You've broken your key in the door. It's stuck. Great. Arranging for a locksmith could cost up to $100, but for a cheaper and quicker option, try using a hot glue stick. Heat the end with a lighter, and once it's warm enough to melt, push the glue into the keyhole. The melted glue will enter the available space, covering part of the key. Once it cools, it compresses and gains a strong hold of the key's end. Now, just pull it out. If you need to siphon liquid through a hose and want to avoid using your mouth, put one end in the liquid and hold the other upwards with your thumb closing the top. Now shake up and down. This jiggle motion pushes liquid upwards, a little each time. And once it reaches the top, lower the exit point and let gravity do the rest. You've left your keys locked inside the car. It's an older model with a roll-down window. You could get the coat hanger and begin the long process of finding the lock. Or use duct tape. Make about 20 2-foot-long strands. Stick them onto the window, allowing enough room for the tape to grab onto at the bottom. Then with a friend, take the ends of the tape, holding them together, and pull downwards. The force will allow the window to lower enough that you can unlock the door. While drilling long screws into hardwood, your old drill might not have enough power, leaving them only halfway in. Before the drill gives up, get a block of wax and scrape the edges of the screws with it. The wax works like a lubricant, melting as it gets warm and providing easy entry for the screw. You're out camping, but you didn't bring anything to light the barbecue. Take a small plastic bag that won't leak, fill it up with water, and close it tight, making a round bubble. Hold it over where you want to catch the light from the sun. The bag of water will work like a magnifying glass, starting up the barbecue, just as long as it's a sunny day. Missing a corkscrew or a cork breaking halfway? By using a stove lighter, heat the top of the bottle. The heat slightly expands the glass, and this forces the cork out the top. You've superglued your fingers again. Take some salt and pour it on top of your stuck fingers. Put your fingers into the water and slowly rub. The mixture will dissolve the glue and release you in no time. While hanging up a painting, it can be impossible to find that stubborn nail. Place a fork upside down and insert it so the nail is in between the middle fork teeth. The fork has provided a long arm that's separated from the wall, making it easier to slip the string of the painting over the nail. Once it's perfectly balanced, simply remove the fork. You need to put a cake into a container, but taking it out again later by lifting it up from the inside might ruin the cake. Put the lid upside down and place the cake on the lid. The base of the container is now the lid, making it much easier to access, slice by slice. Pour out water more efficiently from large jugs and bottles by swirling. This will make the liquid inside spin, creating a vortex. The vortex allows for the air to flow back into the bottle as the water pours out, much faster than the glugging alternative. There's an easier and less messy way to remove eggshells from a boiled egg. Once fully boiled, crack the shell on both ends by tapping them. On one end, pinch off the shell. Use the opened end to blow with your mouth. The force of air will push the flesh and expand the eggshell, forcing out the egg undamaged. When the hinges of your laptop break, repairing them can cost up to $300. A far cheaper fix is to buy a picture frame and tape it to the back of the screen. You've dropped a small piece of jewelry on the floor, seemingly impossible to find. Take a stocking and place it over the end of the vacuum hose. Give the area a good vacuum and check the end periodically. You will eventually find it sitting at the end. You've drilled a hole in the wall, but the drill hole is now too wide. Remove the screw and find an object that is slightly shorter and thinner. Pieces of plastic, small wires, paper clips, or even toothpicks are perfect. Place whichever item you find inside the hole. It's filled the gap enough so the screw will now re-enter securely. Taking the trash out can put you in a gross scenario of getting bin juice on you. A great way to avoid this is by placing old papers at the bottom of the bag. Now, not only does it absorb all the liquids from the food and other sources, but also helps prevent bad smells from forming within a bin. Nobody likes mosquitoes, and pesticides are pricey. A cheap alternative is to take a plastic bottle and cut the top part off from the bottom of the funnel. After removing it, turn it upside down and put it inside the bottle. Mix 2 cups of warm water with 2 tablespoons of sugar. The mosquitoes will be attracted to the formula inside and become trapped. Now just sit back and relax without getting bitten.
So grab your phone. Good, now turn it around. You see that little dot between the camera and the flash? That's a tiny microphone. Bet that's something you didn't know. What's it doing there? Well, when you're on a phone call, this little guy is busy at work reducing the amount of background noise other people hear when you talk. That's right, if it wasn't for this, calls wouldn't be as nearly as crisp as they are now. You're lost in the woods and you're rushing to get back to camp. You suddenly remember you've got something that can help. You grab one of your chest straps from your backpack and whistle on it. Yup, that's right. A lot of bags have this feature in them, especially the ones made for the outdoors. It isn't long before you hear the call of one of your friends and you follow them back to the warm campfire, saved by this cool bit of design. If you're a curious person, you might have wondered what that little pocket in your jeans is doing there. You know, the one that's inside the bigger pocket? People often use it to store coins and bills, but it's not meant for that. It's actually designed to store your pocket watch safely. Ah, maybe that's where the name pocket watch comes from. You finally arrive home after a long day's work. You understandably don't feel like cooking, so you sit on the couch and watch a bit of TV and order some takeout. How about Chinese? Ah, perfect. There's the doorbell. That has to be your food. It smells delicious. Wait, before you grab the plates, do this instead. Open your Chinese food container on the table. It becomes the perfect plate, and it's cardboard, which means no cleaning either. The can of soda you got with your food has a cool feature too. Look at the tiny metal tab there, the one you use to open the can. Guess what? You can fit your straw in there. In fact, that's exactly what they're made for. Go ahead, try it for yourself. If you're not at your computer, take a look at your keyboard right now. If you're not, that's okay. Here's one on the screen. The keycaps are arranged in what's called the QWERTY layout, named after the first 6 keycaps below the numbers. As it turns out, it wasn't always this way. They used to be laid out alphabetically, which would make more sense when you think about it. The alphabetical layout fell out of use because long ago there were things called typewriters. Remember those? You press down a key and a type bar would fly out, hitting an inked ribbon and stamping a letter on the piece of paper. Eventually, typists got good at this and typed faster. Too fast. The type bars would eventually get caught in a log jam with each other, ruining the flow. To fix this problem, they made keyboards with randomized keycaps. The new layout actually worked better because it made typing harder, helping to slow typists down and prevent the type bars from getting stuck. Much better. Today, no type bars, no typewriters, mostly. People are still fast nowadays, but you just can't help but wonder who is faster though, us or them. Keyboards have another hidden feature too. Have you ever noticed that the F keycap and the J keycap have little bumps on the bottom of them? As it turns out, they're there to help people figure out where they are on the keyboard without having to take their eyes off the screen. Grabbing a takeaway cup of coffee at your favorite cafe might be just what you need to fully wake up in the mornings. When you get back home or to work, though, you might be afraid to stain your desk when you put the steaming hot coffee down. Worry not, your plastic lid isn't only good for keeping your coffee hot, it also doubles as a coaster. In fact, they're the perfect size to hold a cup. Try it for yourself. This one's going to come in handy if you're a home cook. If you're like me, you might have a bit of trouble deciding how much pasta you need for just one serving. Well, if you've got a pasta scoop, grab that. Most people don't know what the little hole in the middle is for and assume it's supposed to help with water drainage or something. It turns out that it helps you measure out a perfect serving. Just see how much dry spaghetti you can fit in the hole and use that as one portion. Out at the store buying coat hangers, you might notice that the plastic ones feel cheaper than the wooden ones. There's a good reason for this. Wooden hangers are made out of cedar wood. The big difference between the two is that the wooden ones repel bugs and moths. They're stronger and last longer too, perfect for things that might stay in your closet for a long time. When you brush your teeth, you might have noticed that your toothbrush has blue bristles. They're not just there for show. In fact, they're there to tell you when it might be time to switch toothbrushes. These bristles lose their strength and color when the brush has been worn down, letting you know that it's time to get rid of it. Microwaves often look a bit like mini TVs, especially ones where you can clearly see the black film around them. This is actually a really important feature that's used to keep the radiation from slipping away. They're called Faraday cages, if you want to get technical. This is why you can stand next to a microwave without melting into a puddle. That's not to say you should stand in front of the microwave and watch your food heat up, but at least you know you won't grow an extra ear or something. Okay, not really. Some ovens have a drawer under them. It's tempting to use this to store random junk you don't use often, but there's a better use for it. Instead, this should be used to help keep the food that's waiting to be served hot. You can take it out of the oven and store it right in this drawer, keeping your oven free for you to carry on cooking. Now, you're on a plane looking around trying to pass the time before takeoff. When you examine the window, you notice it has a little, very tiny hole on its bottom. Don't worry, it's not broken. It's there to relieve the pressure that builds up over time as the plane goes up and down. It also lets the air flow through it. Now, raise your hand if you've ever ridden on an escalator and scrubbed your shoes on its bristles. Hey, I'm guilty of doing that, maybe more than I should. It's not there to clean your shoes, though. It's an important safety measure. It stops your shoelaces, clothing, and other stuff from getting stuck in there, avoiding a nasty scene when you go to get off. Sometimes a piece of fabric comes with your new clothing. It usually comes along with the extra buttons in a little plastic bag. You might think it's just a piece of fabric to use for future patching, in case you rip it. But that isn't its purpose at all. It's actually supposed to be put in the washing machine to test how it reacts to various washings. Now, you don't have to worry about shrinking your new expensive coat because you know how it'll react to the wash. Bubbles! Who doesn't love bubbles? Most people have fond memories with bubble blowers as a kid. But as adults, the closest thing we can get to recapturing that feeling is with bubble baths. After a hard day at work, there's nothing better than dipping into a nice warm bubble bath. Right, guys? And the bubbles do more than just clean you. If they're high-quality bubbles, they'll serve as a heat insulator. So they make sure that your bath stays warm for longer. Boxes of chocolate sometimes have these mysterious holes in them. When I'm eating a box, or two, I usually ignore them and take out the chocolate by pressing the bottom of the plastic. But it turns out that I've been doing it wrong the whole time. If you press one of the holes, the chocolate comes right out. I'm certainly going to start doing this from now on. Here's another one from the kitchen. The handle on a pot will often have a hole in it. Most people use this to hang them on a nail on the wall as an easy storage method. The hole has another use too. When you're cooking, you can use this handle to hold your wooden spoon or whatever else you might be cooking with. This makes sure you don't make a mess when you put it down. Glass bottles usually come with a cap in them. Well, duh. Otherwise, the liquid would just spill. In this cap, there's a plastic liner that seemingly has no purpose, right? Wrong. It's a seal. No, not a seal. A seal. It's the kind that helps keep your drink fizzy. Just the refreshment I needed. A lot of doorknobs are made out of brass, and it's not by chance. They're made out of this specific material because it's bacteria's worst enemy. That's right, it destroys them. Perfect for those who want to keep a clean house and avoid germs. Hey, you want a fish? So, you hungry, but not quite ready to eat a 3-course meal just yet? How about some instant noodles instead? The water's boiled, your tummy's rumbling, but there's a problem. The styrofoam cup's broken and the noodles are exposed. Wait, is that a space at the bottom of the cup? Why? That space is for protecting the noodles. It's not the company trying to save money or anything. Notice how the ramen in cups is hardly ever broken, but the one in the packet comes out looking like a mess? This technique is called a middle suspension. The noodles are packed in tightly to stop them from getting crushed in the delivery truck. It's not just about the noodles looking nice and long. It also helps those tasty noodles soften more easily. Now, morning breath isn't the best. Luckily, there's an easy way to get rid of it. Yeah, it would have been easy to think that mouthwash was invented for, washing your mouth. Well, mouthwash was originally invented and sold as a floor cleaner. It was sold to hospitals as an antiseptic for years. It never really took off. Some genius in marketing rebranded it as a mouthwash, and the rest is minty fresh history. So, after you've cleaned your teeth, just remember, rebranding can be pretty powerful. It's hard to imagine a world without the internet these days. No streaming, no online games, or pictures of cute little kitties. Yeah, that's not what it was designed for, but who cares, right? The prototype internet was called ARPANET, or the Advanced Research Projects Agency Network. This machine was very sensitive. To stop anyone from turning it off, some clever scientists stuck a piece of paper on it with these powerful words. "This machine is a server. Do not power it down." It was written in red ink. Hey, nice touch. Having your professor scribbling in the margins of your notebook isn't exactly new, except that margins weren't designed for that. They're rat protection. Back in the day, rats would nibble on paper all the time. So if you wrote something on the edge of the paper, it ended up inside a hungry rat. A couple of well-placed lines stopped your best answers from getting eaten. Hey, I can't finish this pizza. Time to cover up those leftovers. Luckily, I have plenty of plastic wrap. A little tug, and the roll just jumped out. Prison break! If you look at the wrap's home, the long, thin box, there's a special little feature that can help you. A cardboard tab on each end. Push them in, and the roll's not going anywhere. Strange that I've never seen them before. It's lunchtime. I'm feeling like a California roll today. Seaweed, rice, cucumber, avocado, and crab meat. Or is it? It's actually imitation crab meat. It's basically cheap white fish blended with sugar. The fish mixture is then heated and pressed into shape. Yummy! That's maybe why it's called the hot dog of the sea. Nah, I just made that up. Your microwave has a secret we've all seen, but never paid attention to. That black mesh you see on the door is a Faraday cage. It stops the electromagnetic energy, or the microwaves, from escaping. And cooking you, too. That's how it heats up your food so quickly. Every microwave has to have one, and they all vary in quality. This Faraday cage can even stop signals from your phone, which I guess is useful. Hey, you don't need your popcorn to stop popping in order to take a call, do you? Airplane mode's a bit easier, though. Ever taken an IQ test and realized you're Einstein-level smart? Me neither. The median IQ is only 100, plus there's very little evidence that Einstein ever even took the test. In the beginning, most people thought the tests were too vague to be helpful in any way. The test was designed for children who needed help with their studies. Later, they realized it could be adapted to identify intelligence, but it was never originally designed for that. Hey, never pop bubble wrap? You're missing out. And, you guessed it, it was never meant to be popped or used in the way we use it today. It was invented as a new textured wallpaper. By sealing two shower curtains together, they created the first bubbles. The idea never really took off, obviously. After failing as wallpaper, it discovered its true meaning in life. It could protect sensitive items. When the first computers were being shipped, bubble wrap was there to help. Imagine a house with bubble wrap wallpaper in every room. Best or worst thing ever? Hey, leave me a comment below. If you owned one of the biggest companies in the world, selling one of the most known products on the planet, how would you keep your company's secret a secret? The formula for Coca-Cola isn't patented. The first recipe was, but when they made changes, no patent ever went through. The secret formula is still only known by a few people at the company. Not only that, but not even Coca-Cola's rival wants the recipe. In 2006, a disgruntled employee tried to sell off the secret, but it didn't work. Hey, take a look at your brand new mattress. Do you see the "Do Not Remove Under Penalty of Law" tag? Wow, that thing looks pretty serious. Good news though, the tags aren't meant for you. They're aimed at the mattress seller. 100 years ago, mattress makers used to create the filling with basically anything. Animal hair, old hospital beds, or clothing. Then strict laws stopped old hospital beds from being used. Their mattresses were filled with germs. Now, on a rainy day, Play-Doh is something everyone can make at home. Mash up some flour, water, salt, food coloring, and wham! Any creative person is amused for hours. Cheap, clean, non-toxic, the perfect modeling clay. But it was never made for that. This stuff was originally for cleaning up walls in the 1930s. That's because people started going crazy for wallpaper, which you couldn't use soap and water on. Eventually, Play-Doh had to find a new home. Now, have you ever finished a lollipop and noticed a hole in the stick? This hole isn't just for show or to make a musical instrument with after you're done. It's there to keep that tasty sweet treat from falling off. While the candy's still hot, it's poured into a mold. As it hardens, the candy flows into the hole and creates an anchor. Oh, not into lollipops? How about good old American gummy bears? Unfortunately, they aren't American at all. They're German. A German company started making them in 1922. The original name was Gummy something something. Anyway, they got the inspiration from real dancing bears at live shows. These treats eventually made it all the way around the world. Hey, ever wondered what those little bumps were for on the F and J keys on your keyboard? These little raised ridges are to help your index fingers be in the best possible spot for lightning-fast typing. Keeping those fingers on F and J, it makes it way easier to reach all the keys, especially if you don't look at the keyboard. Now, everybody loves a Slinky. If you've ever watched one of them strut down the stairs with groovy music in the background, congrats, you're definitely a YouTube fan. People of all ages loved it when it came out, which is crazy because it was never meant to be a toy at all. It's a spring. It was originally designed to stabilize sensitive nautical devices on ships. Nothing fun about that at all. Until that amazing day when one of them fell off a table and danced its way into our hearts. After many experiments, the new and improved Slinky was born. Give that team of scientists a medal. Now, that little pocket on your jeans wasn't designed for loose change or keys. It was originally made to store your pocket watch. You don't have a pocket watch? How is that possible? They were all the rage in the 1890s. But that's not all that makes your old pair of jeans interesting. Look around the pocket areas. You'll see rivets sticking out. No, they're not some cool fashion idea from the past. These rivets serve a very crucial role. They help protect the sensitive areas of the jeans that get the most wear and tear. Back in the day, most people wore jeans to do hard manual labor, so they needed to be tough. If those guys back then saw you paying $100 for a pair of ripped jeans, they'd probably pass out from shock.
If you look at it on the street, you'll think a fire hydrant is about 3 feet in height. But the actual size of the device used to provide water supply to firefighters all over the world is twice as large. That is, if you count the rest of the hydrant, which is hiding underground. They're mostly red, and it's not just a matter of urban design. First of all, they need to be of bright, easily noticeable colors so firefighters can spot them fast when they need to. The choice of color depends on how much water the hydrant can hold. It can sometimes vary depending on the location, but here's the breakdown. A red fire hydrant can splash 500 gallons of water per minute, while an orange one at least 1,000 gallons. Green ones mostly process 1,500 gallons of water per minute, and the most plentiful ones colored blue can generally contain over 1,500 gallons. Hey bowling fans, isn't it super annoying when your bowling ball gets cracked? Turns out that most of them get damaged because of incorrect storage or spikes in temperature. Now come on and face it, since it's already cracked a bit, aren't you curious what's actually inside the bowling ball? 'Cause I sure am. Let's have a look. They mostly make the inner core of the ball of powdered metal oxides, like calcium or iron oxide. They mix them with some resin and catalyst to harden the whole mixture. So that light bulb shape you now see inside of the ball is actually its heaviest part. It also influences how your bowling ball rotates when going down the lane. The same goes with spray paint cans. When you shake it, it makes a weird noise. But what is that thing in there? It's called a pea, and it's meant to hold the paint mixture in place and maintain its shape. They generally make it out of plastic, metal, or ceramic. It basically acts as a whisk to make sure your paint is well mixed together before you apply it to your surface of choice. Ever wondered how soda bottles keep that refreshing fizz for that long? Well, they have a little plastic ring fastened to the lid. They place it there to keep the gas from escaping and making the soda go flat, even if you shake it around in your bag the whole day. Speaking of things we use on a hot summer's day, wait, don't put your baseball cap on just yet. Take a look at it for a minute, and you'll notice there's a small button on the very top. Is it functional, or is it just there for the sake of design? Way back when people started using fabrics to cover their heads, some say the button was actually functional. Since it's on top of the cap where the fabric panels come together, the top button helps keep the cap crown in one single piece. Now, with recent advances in fabric and pattern design, the button is more of an aesthetic feature. It's used to cover up the joint point of the fabric panels. Your cap might not have a button at all, but don't you think a cap actually looks better with one? Cotton pads have two sides, and if you take the time to look at them carefully, they're actually different in texture. Just in case you've ever wondered why, the textured side is for applying makeup, and the even side is for removing it. Bookworms, this one is for you. Dust jackets that come with a lot of hardcover books are not just meant to make your book look pretty, they also double as a bookmark. Just fold the pages you've already read underneath the inside of the jacket, and voila! Next time you reach out for your favorite shirt, take a look at the top buttonhole. It should be stitched horizontally, and all the other ones are vertical. Turns out that the dress shirt was designed this way since the first and the last buttons were the first ones to unbutton throughout the day. They then changed the direction of the buttonhole to ensure the shirt would stay nice and fitted before you're ready to take it off. These days we have so many variations of this awesome dessert that it's hard to imagine we've ever lived without it. You can find different types of cookie dough ice cream or even chocolate chip cookie cake basically everywhere, but the famous cookie wasn't actually invented until 1930. The story goes that a woman named Ruth Graves Wakefield was preparing some chocolate cookies as she was waiting for some guests to arrive. She soon figured out she was out of baker's chocolate, a crucial ingredient for the classic cookies. To fix things up, she chopped up a block of semi-sweet chocolate, thinking it would eventually spread out evenly throughout the batter, given the heat of the oven. Things didn't necessarily go as planned. But hey, it's great they didn't, because this is how she invented this modern dessert we now can't get enough of. And speaking of popular snacks, the potato chip is even younger than the chocolate chip cookie. Well, at least historically. There are many stories trying to explain how it was invented. One of them goes like this. A chef named George Crumb, based in New York, put the chips together in 1953. He decided to try a different cooking solution when one of his customers didn't have nice things to say about his French fries. He said they were too thick and kind of mushy. Then, Crumb came up with potatoes that were thinly sliced and fried until brown. People absolutely loved the dish, and they welcomed the first ever batch of chips with open arms. Ice cream, anyone? If the story is true, back in 1904 at the St. Louis World's Fair, one ice cream shop owner ran out of cups to serve his dish. So, he fashioned a waffle into the shape of a cone, and the rest was history. Okay, I'll admit it, chewing gum-like treats have been around since the ancient Greeks. So this one isn't particularly a revolutionary discovery, but the actual gum we buy today wasn't there until the late 1800s. An American inventor named Thomas Adams wanted to mix together different chemicals to create rubber. He tried and failed, for that matter, to play with chicle for his experiment, but ended up fashioning this neat treat. They still use chicle to this day to produce most chewing gums. Back in the 1800s, there lived a man named Jean-Baptiste Joly, who worked in the fabric industry as a textile maker. How he came up with this next invention that we use a lot these days has less to do with him and more to do with his maid. The story goes that the woman accidentally knocked a kerosene lamp over onto a tablecloth. Instead of getting upset over the damaged fabric, Joly noticed that the substance actually made the material cleaner. Figured it out yet? Yep, that's how the idea for the very first dry cleaner popped up. A very neat accident, if I do say so myself. Now this one I loved. Did you know matchsticks were initially called friction lights? Or at least that's how their inventor, a chemist named John Walker, called them back in 1826. He scraped a stick coated in chemicals across his hearth totally by accident one day and realized that they ignited and created a spark. Initially made out of cardboard, they were then made using wooden splints and sandpaper. Back in the 1940s, a man named Harry Coover stumbled upon a chemical formulation that seemed to stick to everything it touched. The scientific community at the time didn't look much into it, as the formula didn't seem to have many applications back then. It wasn't until 1951 that he looked a bit more into the formula and decided to repurpose it. Along with a fellow Eastman Kodak researcher named Fred Joyner, they gave it a proper full name. But you must know it by the shorter version: super glue. It also has many uses in security these days that it's hard to believe that we didn't come up with this one on purpose. Back in 1903, a scientist named Edward Benedictus knocked over a flask by accident. He looked down and was amazed to see that the glassware had just slightly cracked but maintained its shape. He was expecting it to break into a million tiny pieces. Curious about this hidden feature, he looked into it and figured out what was keeping the glass together was a substance coating the inside of the glass. Ta-da! That's how humanity came up with safety glass.
Linda is an intern at a dental clinic. She's walking up to her car with a coffee in one hand and a purse in the other. She takes out the keys, but they fall out of her hands. She puts the bag on the car's roof, picks up the keys, opens the door, starts the engine, and drives away. She pulls out onto the road and realizes she must have left her bag on the roof. Linda pulls over, gets out, and looks back. Her purse is on the ground. Linda's approaching it, but a truck runs over the bag. Her cosmetics, a cell phone, a book, and everything else is flattened and broken. Linda gets out a smashed curved tube of toothpaste. She squeezes the gel onto her palm. How is this possible? There should be a complete mess inside the tube. But somehow, these three colored stripes didn't mix. They're running parallel to each other with the same thickness. Linda decides to find out how it works. She comes home and puts the toothpaste in the freezer. After a couple of hours, she takes out the tube and cuts it in half. She sees a frozen substance with three colors inside. It seems they put the gel in the tube in this way, with three stripes. When you squeeze the tube, the paste comes out evenly. Okay, but why don't these colors mix inside? Linda finds out there's a whole science studying the deformation and flow of substances in liquid, gaseous, and soft solid states. They call it rheology. They use this science to create the necessary viscosity and density of toothpaste to prevent it from mixing inside the tube and turn it into foam as you brush your teeth. They put toothpaste in the tube from the backside with the help of a special machine. Different strips inside the tube have the same rheology. Under uneven pressures, they retain the same thickness and flow. When at rest inside the box, these strips have a more voluminous shape. But when you squeeze them, they get thinner as they approach the nozzle. They're released at the same speed and consistency, no matter how hard you press. The toothpaste regains the thickness after being pressed. It's like a marshmallow that returns to its shape after you've smashed it. Some dental companies equip their product with a small cylinder connected to the nozzle inside the tube. They fill the pack with white paste and put a small amount of two colorful gels on the sides of the cylinder. As you're squeezing out the toothpaste, it's passing through both sides of the cylinder and pushing the colored gel out of the container. Then, all of it comes through the nozzle in the form of 3 stripes. There are a lot of different patterns of toothpaste. It can be 3 stripes or just one color. But white, red, and blue are the classics. The white stripe is responsible for whitening teeth and removing the dirt. This is an essential function of toothpaste, so there's a lot of white gel. The blue stripe is responsible for fresh breath and protection from germs. The red color protects and strengthens the gums. This is not a strict rule, and companies may change the functions of the stripes however they want. Linda is a little dizzy from all this knowledge, but she seems to understand everything. She squeezes the toothpaste onto the brush and thinks, why does the brush have exactly this length? And why should the toothpaste cover it completely? Brushes have various shapes, but their proportions are generally explicitly created for comfortable cleaning. And here's a little secret about the amount of toothpaste. You don't need to cover the entire brush. One little pea size is enough to clean your teeth. Companies want you to run out of toothpaste quickly to make you buy a new one sooner. Linda is brushing her teeth and thinking how lucky she is to live in the 21st century. Toothpaste, dentists, and dentures. So many different ways to treat and care for teeth. She can imagine how difficult it was for people long before they invented dental technologies in the distant past. It seems they all had severe teeth problems and were in pain. But in fact, they didn't. Even cave people had much better teeth than we have now. Archaeologists found evidence of this. Many ancient skulls have a perfect row of teeth without cavities. Linda doesn't believe it. She looks at her electronic toothbrush. Those ancient civilizations must have had some secret technologies that we don't know about. But there were no dental technologies. To understand how they managed to keep their teeth so healthy, you first need to understand what a tooth is. On the inside, it consists of dentin, a flexible but durable substance. The outer part is covered with the most solid material in the human body, enamel. It's made of calcium and covers each tooth. And it's not just a strong shield. Enamel consists of hundreds of thousands of thin fibers called prisms. One prism is brittle, but a bundle of 1 million can be as hard as a diamond. The prisms are closely twisted with each other, like a rope, and form an ideal tooth structure. That's why teeth are a perfect tool for survival. Imagine a cave human eating meat and vegetables. This food is different from steak and salads at a restaurant. Back then, food was quite dense and solid. To chew it, you had to have strong jaws and teeth. Every meal was a real workout. During chewing, the fibers in meats and vegetables cleaned teeth from dirt and dental plaque. People had strong gums and didn't know about cavities. Their teeth were practically invulnerable. Many years later, we began to use this excellent tool for survival to chew soft buns, hamburgers, tender pâtés, and omelets. Teeth no longer received the load they were created for. That's why they've become weak. Humanity is faced with a diet that has never existed in the entire history of our planet. Too little time had passed from the moment when people were chewing on mammoths to the instant they started ordering tender meatballs at a restaurant. In simple words, softness has taken over the strongest material in the human body. Yeah, the teeth became weaker, but then another serious problem arose: sugar. Cavities appeared when they first brought sugar to Europe. This delicacy instantly became popular. They added it to food and just ate it in cubes like candies. Sugar was considered a prestigious and expensive thing. Of course, no one knew that this product would cause tooth decay. When this problem appeared, people started to create new dental technologies. There are other destroyers besides sugar. Your mouth contains a lot of bacteria. Most of them help digest food, get rid of bad microbes, and clean teeth from plaque. But there are also harmful germs that destroy teeth structure and form cavities. In the past, when food was more natural and rugged, these microbes were not dangerous for strong teeth. Today, we eat food rich in carbs, flavorings, various additives, and sugar. We help harmful bacteria multiply, making them stronger. Your lifestyle also affects dental health. In the past, people had to get food in the fields, forests, and mountains. They mostly lived an active lifestyle and burned a lot of calories. Nobody really works like that now. Training in the gym is much easier than trying to catch a mammoth. Lack of activity provides calories. Extra calories and germs create stomach problems. Gas and acids from the intestine enter the oral cavity and destroy the teeth as well. Now, just look at these guys for comparison. Cats, lions, bears, tigers, cows, and other animals with teeth still eat the same way they did millions of years ago. And that's why they hardly ever have dental problems. Many tribes of indigenous people living far from civilization also have perfect teeth. Linda realizes that all this is true. And what do we all have to do with that? Move to a distant island and eat bananas? No worries, it's not that bad after all. Just eat less sugar, clean your teeth with a brush, and use dental floss twice a day. Visit the dentist regularly, and everything will be fine.
Various types of cheese have holes for a reason. For example, Swiss cheese is made with special bacteria that produce carbon dioxide. As the CO2 is emitted, it blows like bubblegum, leaving tiny craters, also known as cheese eyes. Then the cheese is cooled down, but the holes stay in place. Over 40 billion Oreos are made every single year. It's the world's most popular manufactured cookie. The geometric design stamped onto these cookies has the Nabisco logo, the symbol of European quality, surrounding the word Oreo. William Tournier created the chocolate cookie design we see today back in 1952. If you use reusable bottles, you probably know that sometimes they smell. Even if you only use it for regular water, it still smells. But it's not the water that smells, it's the microorganisms in it. If you drink water from a bottle, the particles of your saliva and sweat stay in there. Those bacteria start to build up in the bottle, causing the smell. So, if you choose reusable bottles, make sure to wash them every day to prevent those bacteria from building up. After washing, let it dry completely before using it again. Not only are the jeans blue, but the police officers' uniforms as well. The first official police officers appeared in the 19th century in London. They were given a blue uniform to contrast with the red and white uniform that military workers had already been wearing. 2 decades afterward, the police force was adopted in the USA, and they followed the patterns. The uniform is still blue nowadays because it proved to be a good color. It's not that visible in dark hours, and police officers can observe things and people staying unnoticed. Also, stains aren't that visible on dark material. And, well, everyone knows that police officers wear blue and they're recognized it. So, why change that? Baby carrots are tiny, and unlike regular carrots, wet, not unlike baby humans. Baby carrots aren't some special sort of carrot. They're actually made of regular carrots by cutting off the skin and outer layers and then polishing them to look that pretty. The problem is they can't retain moisture. A regular carrot retains some water inside because of the layers that lock it in. Once they're chopped out, baby carrots can dry out easily, so they usually sell them in bags with some water inside. Jeans have metal rivets, and they're there from the very beginning. Jacob Davis, the man who made the first pair of jeans, added copper rivets to spots where pants are more likely to rip, flies and pockets, to make them stronger. Today, they have more of a decorative purpose, since they are distinctive and traditional for jeans. Another special thing about jeans is those tiny pockets they have that seemingly serve no purpose. Well, maybe it's true now, but years ago, when many cowboys were wearing jeans, the pocket was made specifically to keep a pocket watch there. Also, back then, a pair of jeans had just 4 pockets. That tiny pocket, the watch pocket, 2 big pockets in front, and just 1 pocket in the back. Car headrests are all about comfort, and detachable headrests are all about safety. If you pull the headrest out, you'll see 2 sturdy metal bars. If you ever get locked or trapped in a car, you can use the bars to smash the window and get out. Those little red spots you sometimes see after you crack an egg are nothing to be worried about. Tiny blood spots can be caused by a small rupture in a blood vessel of a hen as it was laying the egg. Eggs with these blood spots are safe to eat, but that spot can be removed if you want. It won't affect the taste of the egg. Oh, that's comforting. Hidden within the Toblerone logo of the mountain is the image of a bear standing on its hind legs, about to eat that yodeler over there. No, not really. This is because bears are a big part of Bern, one of the biggest cities in Switzerland, where the founder created the triangular chocolate treat. Toblerone is also a play on the founder's family name, Tobler, and the Italian word Torrone for honey and almond nougat. The space below a cup of noodles is there to protect the noodles during transport. This technique is called a middle suspension. Not only are they protected better in their styrofoam cup, but it also helps those noodles soften more evenly and quickly. Even though you might have noticed that the hole on the barrel of ballpoint pens has no purpose, it does. It's called a venting system, which helps the ink flow more smoothly. This way, an even amount of air pressure is created inside and outside the pen, allowing the ink to flow into the point easily. It's not an accident that soy sauce bottles have 2 spouts. The sauce is liquid, and it flows out of the bottle pretty quickly once you turn it over. Most Asian food lovers will admit they've spilled it at least once in a lifetime. That's why nowadays, restaurants prefer serving soy sauce in special bottles that have 2 spouts. This design allows you to control when and how much sauce will come out. Just put your finger on one spout while you pour the sauce through another. If you press your finger tightly to the spout, the sauce will stop flowing, and if you remove your finger, it will flow again. And please do not remove your finger in a restaurant. It will freak everybody out. You've probably noticed that train and bus seats are covered in fabrics with weird patterns. Any idea why? They use these patterns to cover any germs and stains on the seat. Oh boy. The brighter the color and the more patterned it is, the harder it will be for a passenger to notice any stains and get grossed out. Also, the patterns are usually so ugly that no one even wants to look at them for long enough to spot any stains. So yeah, the pattern is there to make you look away, and if you look, to make it less noticeable. No bus will ever have plain white seats, that's a guarantee. The middle tab on soda cans can be flipped around. You can slip a straw in place so you don't have to hold it up your mouth. This stay-on tab replaced the pull ring tab created in the early 60s. You remember those, don't you? Those could be quite sharp and easily discarded where they could be a menace for others. Now you can pop your straw straight into one. Also means you can produce some bubbles and make a mess like a 3-year-old. Sometimes, when you purchase an article of clothing, you receive a plastic baggie with an extra button and a swatch of fabric. While the fabric is clearly used to patch holes, it can also be used to test the effects of various cleaners on certain surfaces. It's handy, too, to test wash cycles before using them to wash the whole garment. Escalators have those fluffy black brushes for a similar reason that some have yellow lines on their steps, to try and deter people from getting too close to dangerous places. People don't always take notice, and sometimes clothing can drape close to the point where the step meets the edge or skirt. The brush is a little barrier to help prevent this from happening. They can also catch bits of fluff and prevent other small things from falling down into the gaps. Those takeaway containers most associated with Chinese restaurants are designed to not only carry your food home, but to store it in the fridge. They double as a plate, as you can eat straight out of them and don't have to worry about dirty dishes. Yay! They were actually patented way back in 1894 to transport freshly shucked oysters and were known as oyster pails. They were later adapted to use as leak-proof containers for food. Ever wondered why coins have those little ridges along the edge? It's a leftover from earlier times when they were worth more. Counterfeiters could easily file the edges off to sell as gold or silver coins to make some profit. The ridges were created so it was much easier to tell which of the coins had been altered. It's not needed today, but the coins still have that altered style. All crackers and some cookies have holes to make sure the final product has the right texture. These teeny tiny holes allow steam to escape, so your crackers and cookies won't snap. If it weren't for these holes, also known as dockers, steam would build up inside the treat, and the final result might have been scrumptious, but it would have been rather oddly shaped. Dogs like to walk in circles before snoozing because they inherited this behavior pattern from their ancestors. There were no special doggy beds back then, so most pooches would have to push down tall grass to make a sort of snoozing spot. Plus, as a bonus, those movements scared off all the critters lurking in the vegetation. Donuts are ring-shaped for a similar reason. If they hadn't had holes right in the center, the dough there would have always been undercooked. By the way, they're often associated with the police because back in the 1950s, donut shops were among the only places open late. They were a perfect place for police officers to grab something to eat and even deal with some paperwork during the night shift. Your jeans are blue on the outside and white on the inside because of a smart way to weave the fabric. The warp thread is dyed, while the weft thread has no color. It's just white. This way, manufacturers reduce the amount of dye needed for each piece of clothing. And they're still dyeing to make the jeans.
Okay, I know it's kind of cold to the touch, especially on a freezing winter's day. But did you know that brass doorknobs actually serve a purpose apart from looking classy and shiny? Since it's a copper alloy, brass has antimicrobial properties. That means it can help get rid of harmful germs and bacteria, sometimes in up to 2 hours. In high-traffic areas, that's all the more useful, but since brass is much costlier than other metals like nickel and steel, you barely see these types of doorknobs anymore nowadays. Speaking of lovely multi-purpose items, most screwdrivers have a tiny little secret of their own. They can sometimes be slid through a wrench so that they can be used to create more torque when twisting, not to mention the uses when it comes to bolts in hard-to-reach places. There's a reason why buttons on women's shirts are for the left-handed, and it has nothing to do with fashion. This practice dates back to the times when chambermaids were helping ladies dress themselves, and it was easier for them to perform their job with this orientation. Having the buttons placed as such indicated a sign of wealth, so it's easy to imagine why the practice carried on, even though most people dress themselves nowadays. Next time you receive a package in your mail, take a look at your box cutter. If it features some diagonal lines on the blade, you're in for a little design perk. Turns out that these are blades that snap off. Continuously cutting cardboard can dull the sharp edge of the blade. To help prevent the need to buy a brand new box cutter, the top segment along the next line can be broken off to reach a new sharp edge. To do this, check out the small hole at the base of the tool, sometimes called the blade snapper. The people that first came up with this brilliant invention were engineers inspired by the way chocolate bars are segmented. Hold on a minute, don't throw away the cardboard package just yet. Most likely, you'll have some silica gel packets somewhere at the bottom of the box. Since this gel is basically a drawing tool, it gathers up the moisture out of its environment, so you can store these packets for further occasions. Whether you'll need to dry out your phone or some other electrical object, you can place them in a container next to the silica gel to reduce the damage. You don't have to be a mechanic to know when a standard car tire needs replacing, since they come equipped with a neat indicator. Take a closer look. and you'll see that treads within the tire are a bunch of rubber notches. When the treads are evened out with the perpendicular bars, it's a sign you need to book an appointment with your local car service, since most likely the tires have lost most of their traction and may not be safe for driving any longer. The upper corners of a car windshield feature textured black dots melted into the glass edges. This neat add-on isn't there for design purposes. It's called frit glazing, which means that a special type of ceramic paint is added to the window for protecting its sealant from UV rays. It also conceals and creates a coarser surface for the adhesive used to set the window in place. Whenever you're up for a drive, check out if there's a small tab under your car's rearview mirror. Bet you didn't know it's there to help switch the mirror from daytime to nighttime views. It uses a prismatic glass technology to blur the reflection and reduce the glare of headlights behind you in traffic. People came up with these manually tilted mirrors in the 1930s, but they became standard somewhere in the 1970s. While you're in the car, check out the headrests, as you most likely don't know that they carry a little disguised purpose. Of course, they're adjustable to accommodate passengers of any height so that they get the proper support for their heads and necks. The hidden feature is that they are detachable and come with two very solid metal bars. Should you ever find yourself stuck in a car and need to make a fast getaway, these bars come in handy to crack out the car windows. So you're out for a drive and you're suddenly out of gas. What I'm about to describe sounds more like a meme than an actual situation bound to happen. But what if you're in such a hurry that you accidentally drive off with the gas nozzle still in the tank? Well, the nozzles have been designed to prevent any hazards from happening, rest assured. They feature a breakaway device that will allow the hose to separate when taken out with enough force. Initially designed in the early 20th century to be worn exclusively by basketball players, sneakers soon became one of those fashion fundamentals, similar to jeans and leather jackets. If you take a closer look at them, you'll see they have two extra holes on the side, similar to the shoelace holes. They're manufactured as such not only to provide extra ventilation, but to allow people to get extra creative with their laces when wearing the shoes. Admit it, you've always thought that chopsticks are merged at the end for the sole purpose of keeping them together until you're ready to dig into your meal. That may or may not be the whole truth. Under a more detailed inspection, the wooden tools feature a square-shaped end. Chopsticks manufactured like this date back to an old Japanese traditional design, which can help with breaking the ends easily. The separated end can then be used as a resting block for the chopsticks to keep it more sanitized in hopes it can be used again, since they won't be touching the table or any other surface. Women's bikes have a special design which, surprisingly, has a historical and fashionable purpose. The lower frame is for the most part meant to make up for the generally shorter height of ladies, compared to that of the average gentleman. While that is the case for handlebars and saddles, the overall frame is lower for an additional purpose. Way back when women wore long skirts and dresses all day, every day they needed to make sure their outfits wouldn't get caught in the frame. That's how we came up with a lower framed bicycle, perfectly made for women and their needs at the time. The fact that toothpastes are multicolored is not just a nice perk to make dental hygiene more fun. There's a secret meaning related to each of the colors, which dates back to the 1970s. In those days, people grew more and more interested in their oral health care, and as such, they were looking for products which could do more than merely clean their teeth. One company was the pioneer in that regard, adding mouthwash to its toothpaste, meaning the blue strip. They later added on the red strip, meant to feature ingredients which helped with gum care. Speaking of toothpaste, check the cap next time you open a new tube. You may be in for a little surprise. There's a pointed cone shape inside the cap, so you can puncture the seal of the toothpaste without cutting yourself or ruining your manicure. Not to mention, it's more hygienic since you won't be able to transfer germs or other bacteria into the product itself. On the subject of bathroom countertop items, toothbrushes come with a neat add-on hidden in the bristle patterns. Apart from making the toothbrush look cooler, they also do come with a practical purpose. Most toothbrushes come with a pattern of blue bristles intertwined with white ones. The blue dye is meant to fade out, signaling the time when you need to replace your toothbrush. Dentists say that toothbrushes should be replaced every 3 to 4 months, but it does serve as a great reminder in case you forget. Still love playing with Lego? Don't judge. Hey, it's a great hobby for all ages. Notice there's a hole on top of the Lego heads? Behold, you're looking at a safety feature that the people at Lego designed to prevent choking hazards. The most dangerous issue should a person swallow any of these pieces is the blocking of the airways. Designing a hole inside the Lego head helps the air to flow freely through the piece until it can be removed safely. We're now used to all sorts of modern light bulbs, some tubular, some shaped like diamonds, and some even twisted altogether. Historically, light bulbs were round and the initial shape served a purpose in itself. It was mainly connected to the fact that glass bulbs were hand-blown, which gave them the round shape to begin with. The hidden practical reason was that the light bulb filament needed to be at the same distance from every surface of the glass sphere. The easiest way to achieve this was to make the glass in the shape of a globe.
Seatbelt on the passenger seats has a fabric loop. When put under a great amount of pressure, the stitches on the loop rip apart, so the excess fabric can assist in cushioning the passengers. The extra few inches can make a great difference within a dire circumstance. However, there isn't one on the driver's side. As the driver is so close to the steering wheel, it's safer for them not to have one. Seatbelts were originally invented in the mid-19th century, though this technology wasn't brought into common practice until the 1960s. Pre-collision sensory technology has assisted with developing the safety of seatbelts and other features to the next level. Effectively predicting a car's collision, the technology directs the seatbelts to automatically tighten, aligning the airbags and ensuring the brakes will be preloaded to reduce shock. Every year, 6 million car accidents occur, which explains why all cars still must continue to develop safety features, not only to alleviate accidents, but to protect people more effectively within their cars. The materials that make up the body of cars only started getting replaced within the last 25 years, ranging from aluminum and magnesium alloys to carbon fiber composites. These lighter materials not only enable a more fuel-efficient journey, but they also ensure that when a car is in an accident, its build provides a crumple zone. As a car hits another object, the crumple zone absorbs energy from the collision. Although this would appear to cause more damage to the car, it helps prevent impact on the passengers. Front and rear bumpers are very underrated, and due to their long history of being used in cars, you can't imagine a time we didn't use them. They were invented in the late 1800s. The bumpers evolved over the years to the point we don't even realize we have them. But they're there, quietly waiting under the outer covers, consisting of compressible foam or plastic around a rigid reinforced bar. All the windows of your car are made of glass, but the windshield is made of a shatterproof version. It's laminated, so whatever might hit it, you can be sure there won't be any shards of glass falling into the front seats. Normal glass was used up until the 1950s. As vehicles became more prominent, they made modifications to ensure safety. Airbags seem like another common feature that has always been there. In fact, they were originally invented in 1968 and were ahead of their time. They slowly gained popularity, and through safety precautions for cars, they eventually became mandatory for all cars to have, only in 1998. They have since developed from just being an airbag within the steering wheel. Today, depending on the vehicle, they can be located throughout the car, ensuring all potential passengers will be protected. Crash sensors connected to an onboard computer detect when a collision occurs and trigger the bags, inflating within milliseconds and providing a cushioned safety within a blink of an eye. It can be difficult to predict the weather, and even more so to determine traction on the road. In the late 1960s, anti-lock braking systems, ABS, were implemented in vehicles. Before that, they had been used in many aircraft, with designs going as far back as 1908. They soon became a necessity for all vehicles, ensuring traction is maintained on slippery surfaces and that there is complete control when braking. Today, ABS has advanced so much that the latest variations ensure further detection when there are strong crosswinds. Cruise control, initially invented in 1948, has been in constant development over many decades. Today, adaptive cruise control ensures that when the car is cruising at a constant speed and detects a slower car ahead, It will then adjust the speed to match the car in front. Other advanced variants may also ensure the car will make a complete stop once identifying that the car in front has done the same. It's easy to forget to have your high beams on when driving on the long and lonesome road for many hours. Automatic high beams are quickly becoming more common. High-tech camera modules can easily determine what type of light is passing through and help ensure when the high beam will be necessary. Although versions of automatic high beams have been around since the 1950s, they counted on light-sensitive sensors and were very unreliable. The new varieties can identify the sources of light, whether it's from the sun, directly from a car's light, or even from the reflection on a sign, ensuring you won't cause issues with other drivers. It's a pain in the neck to have to ensure there isn't anyone creeping into that semi-visible corner, the blind spot, which causes around 400,000 accidents per year. Solar sensors within rear bumpers of vehicles and blind spot monitoring systems watch and identify adjacent lanes. They alert the driver that a vehicle may be in the lane beside them, whether by flashing lights on the dash or from beeping sounds. This way, they help to alleviate the many concerns the blind spot causes. 1.6 million road accidents are caused by texting and driving, and fatigue normally causes up to 10% of all car accidents per year. The Driver Attention Monitor helps to alleviate both statistics. It works through sensors that monitor the car's movements and the amount of steering corrections to ensure the driver is paying attention to the road. When the system identifies that the driver isn't completely awake or is slightly distracted with their phone, it will prompt signals to suggest it's time for a break. Tires are among the most critical components for your car, with a close relationship with whatever path you take. Many safety features rely on the tires themselves for their own independent purposes. That's why it's super important to ensure the tires are always in top condition. Tire pressure monitoring systems check the air pressure of all 4 tires, ensuring you're aware when they need their pressure increased to avoid the risk of a blowout. The constant evolution in technologies continues to ensure you stay safe on longer stretches of the road. Lane departure warnings focus on the lines on the road, ensuring the car stays within. Whenever a car starts drifting over a line in the road without signaling to do so, the camera-based feature identifies and signals to the driver. The lane keeping assist feature follows the same method of identifying when the car is intruding the bordering lane. When it gets too close, it will readjust the steering and center the car within its appropriate lane. Other features in more advanced cars have autonomous driving capabilities. The autopilot systems have taken cruise control to the next level. Not only does it allow the vehicle to steer itself in the intended lane while maintaining a set speed, but it also changes lanes when required, making the ride more and more efficient. Some safety features are only just making a trend in car models worldwide. For example, night vision using thermographic cameras to look out for pedestrians and animals nearby. It goes within the infotainment screen, facing frontwards and identifying objects from their heat signatures. It's estimated that there are over 1.4 billion cars in use worldwide, and as the world's population increases, it's expected that the number of cars will follow suit. Safety features will continue to adapt further beyond what we know of today. Infrared headlights will be further adapted to be used in conditions with poor visibility, like storms, snow, and fog. They'll be capable of enhancing the visibility of the driver in all conditions without affecting the sight of passing drivers. Driver override systems will soon be able to monitor and identify human behavior. Whether due to reckless conduct on the road or for other safety precautions, cars will soon have the functionality to take complete control of themselves, ensuring both the passengers and the driver's safety. Augmented reality windshields are in early development already, providing some indicator reflections from the dash onto the windshield. So it's quite possible that soon all necessary directions from maps and alerts will appear right in front of the driver to ensure they never take their eyes off the road. Airbags will soon not only just be used within a car to ensure the passenger's safety, they will also activate from the outside of the car once they identify a definitive collision. The airbags will inflate outwards, covering the entire outside of the car and drastically reducing its impact. It may be so advanced that the bodywork of the car won't even need to be buffed out. The future technology of cars is expected to be so progressive that the cars themselves will have their own form of communication, not with human drivers, but with other cars. Just imagine cars communicating and sharing information as they identify roadblocks, issues on the road, or disruptive weather patterns. It will all ensure the most efficient and safest route possible.
I have to say, it would be hard to visit the biggest waterfall in the world because, well, it's underwater. Deep down below, there are fissures and caverns on the ocean floor. They form when water oozes through the layers of salt that are beneath it. This water is filled with dissolved salt. This makes it denser than the water surrounding it, which is why it ends up settling into these fissures. Such type of dense water forms a massive waterfall near Denmark. It's a giant cascade that plummets 11,500 feet. That's over 3 times the height of well-known Angel Falls in Venezuela. So the colder water of this waterfall sinks after it collides with the surrounding water that's less dense. Now, the tallest mountain in the world is also underwater, at least partly. If you put it side by side with Mount Everest, the mountain we consider the tallest, Everest, would be like a bunny hill compared to Mauna Kea. This is a giant mountain, but also a volcano that's half above the water and half underwater. From top to bottom, it stretches at 33,500 feet, nearly an entire mile taller than Everest. Now, the Titanic had almost experienced a collision a couple of days before it struck an iceberg and sank. That was something a steward from the ship wrote in a letter to his wife. He mentioned that as the Titanic was leaving the dock in April 1912, it almost collided with the SS City of New York. They managed to avoid that trouble and sailed off to the journey that would later become one of the biggest mysteries and stories in modern history. So, like a fender bender in the harbor might have saved all those lives. Wow. Moving on. We all have unique fingerprints and tongue prints that make us different from each other, even identical twins. In a similar way, you can identify lions through their whisker patterns. Back in the 1960s, scientists found out they can identify each one from their whisker spots, which you can see on each side of the face in rows. If you get close, a little closer, well, maybe just trust us on that one. There's a certain species of predatory fish that can walk on land. No, it's not a movie scenario, more like something from your nightmares. These animals are called snakehead fish, and they sometimes come out on land when searching for food. They evolved to have gills and a special organ that allows them to breathe oxygen located in their gill arches. So they're not in a rush to come back to water right away. They flop on their fins and can move up to a quarter mile away. These creatures can weigh around 14 pounds and live in different locations such as Florida, California, and New England. And if they weren't scary enough, snakehead fish are native to Asia and Africa, which makes them an invasive species in North America. This means they don't have natural predators, so their population can grow without control. Oh, goody. Ever wondered what stuffed animals are doing strapped to the fronts of massive trucks? These toys are the same as the decorative figures that adorn the bows of ships. Such symbols, or mascots at the front, are a way for sea vessels and trucks to reveal their identity to the world. The actual message seems to be truckers are harmless and playful. Maybe the need for sending such messages comes because people mostly see supply trucks as giant road beasts that just dominate lanes on the highway with their spiked wheels that kinda tell you to keep away. Sometimes you'll see stuffed animals strapped to the front of garbage trucks. These are often toys rescued from the trash. They might be aged and imperfect, but they still give their vehicle a bit of warmth and personality. Same as that bumper sticker you have on your car. It's all about customization. Now, if you were on Mars at the moment, you'd probably be able to enjoy listening to the winds there. Sensors researchers set up on Mars picked up the vibrations that happen to be the first ever recorded sounds of Martian wind. You can hear the wind at a decibel within a range that humans can perceive, but you need a little help from your headphones. Almost 50 years ago, a man from France took up a very unusual task. eating a Cessna 150 airplane. He developed a pretty uncommon tolerance for eating dangerous things at an early age. Hey, where was Mom? Actually, he had a rare condition known as pica, which makes you hungry for things that are usually not considered food, like toys, grass, or in this case, an entire airplane. It took him 2 years to finish this large metal-filled meal, and then he took off. Venus is the only planet in our solar system that spins clockwise. At its early stages, this solar system was just a swirling cloud of gas and dust, like me in kindergarten. At some point, it collapsed into a spinning disk, and the Sun remained at its center. Because of this, all the planets move around the central star on roughly the same plane. Planets spin in the same direction too, counterclockwise if you observe it from above. At least most of them. Uranus spins on its side, and Venus spins in the opposite direction. This probably happens because of giant asteroids, which knocked these two off course a long time ago. Most of our planet is covered in water – seas, oceans, lakes, rivers. But if all of that water evaporated and then came down again in the shape of a giant storm, our entire planet would be covered in 1 inch of rain. Things are a little bit different with gold. All of it, located in our planet's core, could cover the Earth in a knee-deep layer, 13 inches. Yup, there's a stash of gold deep down there. It sank when the Earth was still in the forming phase, because that's when it was in a molten state. But we can't reach any of that precious metal. Oh well. You'd think it's only possible to see rainbows during the day, but they can also occur at night. This rare optical phenomenon is called lunar rainbow or moonbow. It happens when the sun coming from the moon gets refracted through water droplets in the air. Moonbows are usually very faint and rare because even the brightest full moon still produces far less light than the sun. The inventor of the microwave wasn't really aiming to create a device we know as a microwave today. He was actually testing a radar magnetron, which is something like an electric whistle that produces vibrating electromagnetic waves. Okay. As he was trying it all out and experimenting with boosting the level of the magnetron tubes, he saw the peanut cluster bar in his pocket had melted. He tested this mechanism again, but this time using corn kernels and an egg. Then he realized he found something potentially way more useful than the issue he was trying to solve in the first place. Plus, he could heat up his lunch. The tallest tropical tree in the world is 330 feet tall, with a weight of more than 180,000 pounds. That's bigger than a jetliner. You can find it on the island of Borneo in Malaysia. One of the local climbers managed to reach the top to get the official measurement. The wind was strong and it was such a scary climb, but it paid off because, wow, the view was magnificent. And he became the first tree hugger, I think. Back in medieval times, you could find shoes that were 2 feet long. People loved pointed shoes. They were very popular for several centuries, starting from the 12th century. People would stuff toes with wool, moss, grass, or hair. One of the other ways to fill the empty space was to support shoes with whalebone, because that's how they could keep their shape. Fashion always changes, so at the end of the 15th century, I wasn't around then, people started wearing short square toes, similar to how a cow's hoof is shaped. Yeah, that's a fashion statement for sure. Ever wondered how strong ants really are? I mean, really. For instance, Asian weaver ants are able to carry objects that are about 100 times their body weight. Considering their tiny scale, carrying heavy objects is not so much about muscle strength. It has more to do with a good grip. Ants have self-cleaning sticky pads on their feet. This helps them with varying the size of the contact patch on the ground. This is how they manage to stay in balance with their burden even when they're moving upside down. Now, our moon is so cool it has its own time zone. Yup, that means you can tell time while there. Back in 1970, the chief astronomer at one of the U.S. planetariums designed a watch for all moonwalkers. The watch measures time in something he called lunations. Lunation is the period the moon takes to rotate and revolve around our planet, and each lunation lasts almost 30 Earth days. So, researchers use a special system called lunar time for the moon. And I think it's time for me to go. Bye. Can you believe it? There are 2 different ways to drink juice from a juice box. The first way is the default one, and the second is to flip the straw over so that its shorter side sits at the bottom of the box. Using the first method, you may have difficulty getting the last sips of liquid because the straw can't reach all the corners properly. Some straws have their bottom corner sharper than the top. It's deliberately designed that way to pierce through the seal. That's why some people believe the right way to drink juice is the conventional one. Now let's continue with straws. Do you know there's a correct way to use a straw while drinking from a can of soda? So, you're about to have some Coke. You pop the tab open, then you put a straw in the can. Now you need to make a constant effort to keep the straw steady. See this hole in the top? Yeah! Turn the pop tab around and put your straw through the hole. It'll serve as a straw holder. No need to be annoyed by the tipping straw. So, what's the best way to eat a cupcake? Turn it into a sandwich. Step 1. Peel off the paper wrapped around the cupcake. Step 2. Carefully divide the cake into 2 parts. Step 3. Put the bottom side of the cupcake on top of the frosting. This is how you eat a cupcake like a pro. Okay, another quick word about cakes. People generally use kitchen knives to cut cakes into 2 parts. But you can use dental floss. Take a piece of floss and wrap it around the cake horizontally. Hold the ends tight with both hands and pull them in opposite directions. There you go! Now you have an evenly cut cake. Smooth, huh? You can use floss to cut through a cake vertically, too. This way, you'll reduce the chance of messing up the frosting. Do you use your fingers to dip your Oreos in milk? Try using a fork. Stick it between the wafers vertically and dip the cookie in milk. Well, you try it. I'm sticking with my fingers. Been doing it all my life. Hey, call me a rebel. You put your food in the microwave. The plate is hot and the upper part of the dish is steaming. You start eating. Oh no, not again. Your meal hasn't heated evenly. If you want your dish to be equally warm, arrange it in a donut shape and leave an empty spot in the center. The middle part of your dish takes longer to heat up. By the time the center warms up, the edges might be overheated. Sometimes you need to microwave 2 bowls of food at the same time. In this case, you can try placing the second bowl on top of a cup. This will give you a free space for the second bowl. Creative solutions for small microwaves. Now, better to secure the cup first though. Cleaning the splashed food will take more time than using this method. To save space, you should roll your clothes instead of folding them when packing. They don't get creased when you roll them. Plus, they take less space this way. Okay, we might as well continue with another packing trick. After rolling your clothes, pack them in your suitcase vertically, not horizontally. Your clothes will fit better into the bag, and you'll have more room for other essential stuff. Drinking iced coffee is a great way to cool your body on a summer day. Sadly, the ice cubes start to dilute the coffee pretty soon, changing the taste of the drink. To avoid this, you can freeze some coffee into ice cubes beforehand. This way, your iced coffee won't get watered down. It turns out that taking a shower too often isn't good for your hair. Experts say you should wash your hair 2 to 3 times a week because overwashing can result in extra oil in your hair. Do you know there's a correct way to fit salami on a toast properly? Yeah, there's a geometry problem. Toast bread is square, but salami is mostly round. You can, of course, do it in a traditional way, by putting 2 slices next to each other. But then the edges of your sandwich won't have any filling. All you need to do is to cut the slices in half. Next, you line the straight pieces with the sides of the toast. You get 4 slices covering the entire piece of bread. Most people peel bananas starting from the top, but this way, you squeeze the fruit. The best way to peel a banana is to start from the bottom. Hey, take a closer look at monkeys. Apparently, they figured this out a long time ago. Do you want to have more space in the closet where you store your cleaning supplies? Then this one is for you. You can hang spray bottles on a clothing rod. It's convenient. You can find those rods online or in stores. This way, you'll keep your cleaning sprays organized. Also, this method leaves more cupboard space for other cleaning supplies. There's a right way to hold a burger. Grab it with both hands. Now place your little fingers at the bottom next to your thumb for extra support. You want to cross out miswritten words? You can draw a line on top of them, but in most cases you can still read the words. Instead of scribbling some lines, just write a bunch of random letters on the top of the word you want to cross out. Problem solved. What is the best way to cut crusty bread? By turning the loaf upside down. The underside of the bread is usually softer than the top, but try not to squeeze the bread too much. The traditional way to drain pasta is to place the colander in the sink. After that, you drain the water and put your pasta back in the pan. But this method isn't the most effective. Sometimes pasta gets into the holes of the colander. The second option is less difficult. Place the colander into the pot and, while holding them together, drain the water. This way, you don't have to move your pasta from the pot. This trick works best if your colander fits your pot. If you don't want to buy several colanders, you can still use this method, but you should be more careful during the draining process. Now, does your freezer ever spoil food? You put ready meals and groceries in the freezer. 2 weeks later, you'll open it only to find your food freezer burnt. There are 2 reasons for this. First, you stock your freezer with too much stuff. Overloading can block the vent. Then the air inside the freezer won't circulate properly. The second reason might be the wrong temperature. The recommended freezer temperature is 0 degrees Fahrenheit or a bit lower. Now, what's the best way to hold a steering wheel? Most people clutch it at 12 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and 10 o'clock. This is not very safe, even if you have 3 arms. For those of us with just 2 arms, the proper way to grab the wheel is to put one hand at 3 o'clock and the other at 9 o'clock. It means placing your hands where the joints are, in case you need to give way to airbags. Holding the wheel differently prevents them from fully inflating. Toblerone is a fancy chocolate bar, but did you know there's a correct technique to break off pieces of this chocolate? Just push the triangle you want to separate toward the rest of the bar. Who would have thought? Pringles are another hard-to-eat but delicious thing. While trying to dig a piece out of the can, don't shove your whole hand in there. Instead, use a sheet of paper. Fold it lengthwise and slide it into the can. Then gently pull it out, together with Pringles. Now you have a tray of crispy goodness.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our special guest today, the garbage bag. Canadian inventors created this irreplaceable household item about 70 years ago. Today, it comes in a huge variety of shapes, colors, and sizes. And if you think it can only serve one basic purpose, I have a big surprise for you. It can even prevent you from unwanted communication, but more on that later. What if I told you that you've been using your garbage bags wrong your entire life? If you take a closer look at it, you'll probably notice that the seam is inside out, and it's not by accident. In fact, you're not supposed to shake up the bag to open it. You gotta place the bag over a garbage can like a hat, and then just push the middle of the bag down to the can. No worries, you're not the only person who didn't know that. This eye-opening trick went viral online and got millions of views. Imagine that you need to dye your hair, paint walls, or mold a clay mug immediately, but you don't have a protective suit on hand. Here comes the good news. You can make one out of a plastic bag. It will take you less than a minute. Just find a bag wide enough to fit your torso. Cut one hole in the bottom of the bag for your head and make 2 holes for the arms on the sides. Voila! Feel free to make a hat from another plastic bag to protect your hair. When the job is done, you can wash this handmade suit and reuse it. Our next hack is for those who don't like to waste money. You can use a real plastic bag instead of a raincoat that looks like a plastic bag anyway. Just make a round cut for your face and you're ready to go. You can reuse it as many times as you want. You can use a plastic bottle to create a recycled bag dispenser. Take a large bottle. It can be either a bottle of soda or washing gel. What matters is its shape. It must be straight so you can easily store bags inside it. Wash the bottle, dry it, and cut off the bottleneck and bottom. Turn it upside down. There you go. Your bag dispenser is ready. You can use your imagination to paint and decorate your DIY project with stickers and lettering to your taste. When the design is ready, attach it to the back of the bottle and stick this holder to the wall in your kitchen or one of the cabinet doors. Imagine you've been planning a perfect hiking weekend for ages. But when you actually get there, it starts raining. Don't rush back home. Plastic bags will serve you well if you need to put your clothes or equipment on wet grass. Also, you can make an emergency sleeping bag cover using a large garbage bag. After the rain, it will serve as a nice mattress to lay under your sleeping bag to protect it from moisture and provide an additional layer for a cozy nap. Just fill the bag with some soft leaves and straw that lie on the ground, and there you go. A large garbage bag can be your best friend when you're camping with friends somewhere in the wild. You can turn it into a temporary handmade shower, toilet, or even a dressing room out of it. Just hang it on the tree and no one will spy on you. If you went for a walk wearing a pair of your favorite shoes that get wet easily, here's an easy tip to keep your socks dry. Put plastic bags over your socks. Tuck the edges of the bags into your socks or trousers, and then put your shoes on. There's one obvious drawback though. Feet can slip inside the shoes, so be careful. These plastic socks are also handy when you're trying to put on tight jeans that usually make your feet stick inside them. Have you ever had your bag torn at the worst possible moment? A plastic bag with handles can become an emergency backpack. Just place your stuff inside the bag, put your hands through the handlers, and you're ready to go. A garbage bag is also a good material for book covers. You can reuse multicolored bags to create a unique pattern for your favorites. You're moving to a new house and packing all your belongings. Suddenly, you run out of boxes. Sounds familiar? No problem. Grab a package of large garbage bags and pack the remaining stuff. Unlike boxes, this packaging will protect your property from rain or snow. Garbage bags are especially good for packing blankets, pillows, and stuffed toys. If you need to make a vacuum packing for your clothes or stuffed toys, simply put your belongings in a trash bag, place a tube from your vacuum cleaner inside the bag, and then turn it on. The vacuum cleaner will remove all your excess hair from the bag, and you'll save space in your suitcase or basement. Someone really special has invited you home to cook a romantic dinner together. Finally, you want to show all your extraordinary cooking skills, but your special someone doesn't have an apron, and you don't want to mess up your new outfit. No worries. Make an emergency apron using a large garbage bag. It will surprise that special someone even more. Speaking of stylish outfits, are you familiar with the term garbage bag dress? Celebrities and famous fashion brands shock the audience with outfits looking like trash bags from time to time. Some of them actually make outfits using garbage bags like fabric. It's a popular option for young artists who can't afford to buy and use expensive fabrics. Garbage bags are very flexible, so they are a useful material for making patterns for future outfits. When it comes to garbage bags, the DIY project's possibilities are almost infinite. People use bags to make lampshades, clothes covers, small cosmetic bags, makeup organizers, recycled glasses, and whatnot. Some even weave baskets, bags, and floor rugs out of them. It's pretty easy to handcraft a rug. You need to cut several bags into equal strips and weave a long braid from these strips. Now twist this braid into a spiral and tie or glue each layer together. To secure this entire construction from breaking, you can screw your rug on a sewing machine from the middle to the edges, as if you're drawing a star. This plastic braid can also serve as emergency laces, a rope, or a handmade ribbon for decorating gifts and flowers. Filmmaking is another yield where garbage bags can be real stars. If you're shooting indoors and the sunlight is too sharp, you can put white garbage bags on all windows to diffuse the light or to set the white balance. Blacklight-proof garbage bags may serve you as a shading curtain to get rid of the sunlight in the room whatsoever. Feel free to use a white bag to create a diffuse light bulb. Inflate the bag like a balloon and put it next to a lamp, but make sure to use a LED light so it doesn't get too hot. Everyone knows that touching a plastic bag with a hot iron is a bad idea because it will melt. But this lets us create unique shapes from this colorful and affordable material. Want to make a unique designer vase? Take a bowl and cover it with paper tightly. Then wrap the matching strips of plastic bag around the bowl. Now place another layer of paper on the top and gently iron over the entire surface of the bowl. Voila! The plastic's melted and you got a new stylish and eco-friendly vase. Garbage bags can produce very cool sound effects. If you live in a desert where it never rains and need to recreate that relaxing sound, use a plastic bag. It's always better to speak up like an adult, but if that doesn't work for you, here's a quick fix. Next time some annoying person calls you, don't bother to make excuses why you can't talk right now. Just grab a garbage bag and rustle it into your phone speaker yelling, "Hello? Hello? I can't hear you!" Confession